Hey, how's it going? You are here for Heavy Art Talk. I am your usual host, Lee, and I am extremely honored today. I have Alex Eckman-Lawn for this episode. In terms of his work, I mean, he has so much versatility, but a lot of people know him primarily for his collage work. I'm really excited to talk about his process. It's some of the best collage art I've ever seen, frankly. And we might even expose a little bit of my ignorance to that medium in general. But, you know, he's worked with so many bands, and he also has a lot of success in the comic book industry. He's done book covers. He's had his stuff shown in galleries. He's been in really cool publications like Hi-Fructose and Juxtapoz. A couple of the bands he's worked with, Arma, Smashing Pumpkins. He recently did the album cover for the new Afterbirth album, as well as End. And yeah, just excited to have him. Let's bring him to the stage. What's up, man?
Hey, thanks for saying all those nice things about me.
Yeah, now it's time to shit on you for the next hour.
It's all set up. Right? Perfect. I'm much more comfortable with that.
I know how it is.
I do have like book covers I can run to the other end of my tiny one-room apartment and get if at some point you want to look at those.
Yeah, I think it's so cool because a lot of people I have on the show, they really do predominantly stay within metal, and that's like exactly what their aesthetic is. But you've captured the attention of a lot of different industries. So I'm really excited to learn more about like maybe some commonalities between those projects, like just what the kind of business part looks like in terms of the back and forth. But yeah, man, I mean, overall, how have you been lately? Things going good?
Yeah. Things are good. I'm busy, which is like, good problem. I just did, since you mentioned it, like I did interiors for a comic for the first time in like a kind of a while.
Awesome.
And I forgot that the schedule for that kind of thing is like brutal.
Yeah.
I have friends that work in comics like predominantly, and they pump out like 2 pages a day or whatever, but I had to like cancel all my plans and like not leave my apartment for like about a month to get 32 pages done. Was it more than that? But so I'm tired, man. I feel like I'm still catching up. That comes out the 29th of this month. So like I finished it. I like barely hit this deadline. And then like weeks later it comes out.
The turnaround is so quick. Bands, wild. It's like you do something, it's like a year before you can show it.
Yep.
But man, so different.
It's honestly, well, whatever. That's really cool because a lot of times by the time the thing I made comes out, I hate it. I imagine you can relate to this. I don't want to
totally
put you in the same category as me. We already look very similar.
We do, like, yeah.
By the end of this interview, who knows who will be what. But yeah, it's like a time release. I'm going to go slightly less negative than I was about to. I feel like I'm most confident in the thing right after I finish it.
Yeah.
And then the farther you get from it, the more I'm like, oh, I don't know if that actually holds up. So it's nice at least being able to enjoy the like release of something before I start to pick it apart. But yeah, I'm trying to, I don't know, finish all the stuff that's on my list without losing my mind.
Yeah. Well, it's a good problem to have though, to have like a steady stream of projects and stuff. So it's a blessing and a curse, that's what I gather.
I'm being a baby about it. I feel very lucky. It's great that I have work to do.
I mean, part of this is it's a powwow. It's a venting session. Most of the people watching this channel, they're all artists themselves. They want to hear the good and the bad. Yeah, so it's all good. Shit, what was I gonna say? I didn't sleep very well last night, so I could tell I'm gonna have a slightly foggy brain, but I'm gonna be just fine.
Hey, if we're talking about it, I had when you have like a nightmare that lasts like the entire time you sleep.
Oh yeah.
I had a nightmare that I was like, I'm sorry, this is the most boring thing. You can edit all this out. But that I was at an Airbnb and I murdered the guy.
Okay.
That's not already. I want to make it clear. I'm not like, I'm not even like a particularly angry person, Yeah. But whatever. So I spent the entire dream being like, holy shit, I killed someone. I woke up and had to like remind myself that didn't happen. So I also feel like shit, is what I'm saying.
You feel a little guilty.
I'm actually just elated that I am not a murderer. Like all morning I've been like, things aren't so bad. I'm not on the run from the law.
It's definitely an odd dream though, because I feel like it's more likely that you would be murdered. Although I've heard it might be like a wives' tale type thing, but like you can't actually die in your sleep because you'll wake up right before you actually die. But I don't know how legit true that is. But I feel like it'd be more the opposite. I'd be getting hunted down.
That's usually the way my dreams are, if that makes you feel better. I have like, I don't know about you, but my like, what, I can't lucid dream or whatever. And as soon as something starts, like when I have good dreams now, my brain immediately is like, that doesn't seem like you're definitely dreaming. Like it'll wake me up as soon as like something cool starts happening. So like, let's say it's a dream where I can like fly or whatever, like almost immediately the shitty part of my brain kicks in and is like, you can't do that. Wake up.
You can't even have a moment of joy, you know?
Right. But any scenario in a nightmare, they're like, probably.
One thing I wanted to make sure I got right. You live in Philly now?
Mm-hmm.
It's like amazing how many artists that I've been talking with or like have been on the show or whatever are in Philly. Like, do you feel like it's a very artistic place living there?
Definitely.
Yeah.
For practical reasons, it's just like one of the last kind of affordable cities on the East Coast. You know, there's like Baltimore, I guess. Whatever. I'm not, what, it's a major metropolitan area where you can still pay like $1,000 a month a few places, you know?
Right.
Like someone just had to like find a apartment. I'm living alone for the first time in my life. I'm going to really open up. We're really going to get into the specifics of my life and brain. And it rules. I love living alone. It's great. I've never done it before. It's cool being able to just like, well, I don't know, roll from my bed into my workspace and whatever. But it's definitely, it's hard to find somewhere to live affordably right now. I had to get toothpaste. I accidentally bought like a fancy toothbrush by accident, but it was like $40.
Oh so, man, like, was it at least electric?
Okay, so yeah. I didn't realize. It was written like real small, and then I got out of the package and I was like, fuck. Because I don't, like, that's not, I don't know, it makes me feel weird when my whole mouth is vibrating. Anyway, the toothbrush was like $13. The toothpaste was like $20-something. I got like floss or whatever. But my point is, it's very difficult to stay alive right now and be an artist. Like I'm making it somehow. Like I'm basically just like working constantly, you know? But I think the specifics of the way this city works make it a little easier to survive here as opposed to New York or LA or whatever. But also it's just, I don't know. I'm from Philly, so I'm biased, but it feels like a town that is interested in the arts and has like a lot of little scenes that you can actually become like involved in without it being like the gatekeeping is a little bit lower maybe. So like you can just go to like Paradigm or Arch Enemy and like meet the people that run the gallery. It's not totally impossible. You would like be able to talk to them about showing there. There's like open calls. You can meet other artists. There's just like a ton of little communities. And there's bands and venues and like, I'm sorry, where are you located?
I'm in Atlanta, which has a pretty good art scene, especially for the South, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, I feel like that's like a similar kind of vibe. You guys have like a lot of like, there's like big stuff happening, but it's not like the hugest city, right?
Right, exactly.
Like that's how Philly feels to me. I know we're like big, but a lot of it is this like sprawling kind of like truthfully.
What's the metro area for here, man? That's where all the population is.
But yeah, I don't know. I also have been trying to figure this out. Where I'm like, there's so many artists that I admire and like packed into these like little spaces in Philly. Like I'm around like walking distance from like 4 people I really respect.
Yeah, that's sick.
But yeah, I you know, it does feel a little bit like the advice I always try to give to people who are like, what do I do starting out to like get into stuff or whatever, like get my work shown. I feel like it's a big part of it is like finding a community that's supportive. So like that being here already and like if new artists want to talk to me, like I'm always stoked about it. I just did this like sort of short talk about my work at the Philly Collage Collective. They did something like a pop-up with Paradigm. And it's like just like I don't know, I feel like there's always a new thing happening. There's people who are like really motivated to make sort of art happen here. I don't know if this is even an answer to your question anymore.
Well, dude, this is a podcast, right? You kind of just wander wherever. I think that's something I need to focus more on in the next year is getting more tight with the Atlanta art scene. I feel like this past year with the show, it's become more of a, you know, international thing, but it's all still internet based. I need to do a little bit better in person networking next year. I think.
I didn't see a lot of these people the last 2 years, like there was that pandemic that got in the way of like all this shit. I'm only just starting to like really go back to opening like First Friday stuff. And like, do you guys have that? Is that a Philly? It's not Philly specific. There's
First
like a
Friday in the sense of like, just like cheaper gallery visits or something kind of like that, or?
Yeah, it's like a big chunk of the galleries in Philly all have openings, like new shows on the first Friday of the month.
Oh, okay. I think that's probably common here too. That's the thing. I'm kind of a little out of the loop. I know a couple of kind of contemporary illustrator friendly type galleries. They're not super fine arty, that I think I would fit in with, but I haven't made that, that attempt yet. So that's something I should do.
Yeah. I mean, looking at art in person is like always, I think, pretty sick.
No, totally.
Usually rewarding. So even if it's like not for networking, like it's just cool to go see like paintings in person.
Yeah, agreed.
That's like, especially selfishly, like I think my work looks so much cooler when you can actually see like the depth.
Oh yeah, 100%. I could totally see that. And you do a good job, even like on Instagram and stuff, showing some of that layering, just with like how you take the photos. Like it does make a bigger impact than just the head-on shot.
I try. I worry about that a lot, to be honest with you.
I mean, you do as best as you can. I mean, you can't replicate in person.
I've had a couple jobs where like we'll sort of go the extra mile to. So there's like two ways I can make my work. I collage first in the computer, so it's like a digital version that I then like print each individual layer and cut, and then like sometimes reorganize and stuff. But so like there is a section that looks layered but isn't actually physically layered.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the illustration stuff is more, it just stays flat because they're going to need, file anyway. It's like not really worth it to cut and photograph. But there's a few where we've gone the extra step, and like I know that it's there and it's sort of exciting to me. But when I look at them and like next to the ones that aren't physically layered, I'm kind of like, I don't know if anyone else would even like, was this worth it? So like the gallery shows are like where that stuff I think for me gets to shine.
That makes a lot of sense. No, totally.
Plus, like I don't know, big dork. I care about like art history, and it's like to me very exciting to see work in person. Yeah,
no, I'm with you, man. One thing I wanted, the collage community. I'm not that tuned into it at all. Are there any people that are like, not to be too hot about it, but like, are they kind of like purists where it's like all has to be like found stuff?
Oh, yeah. Because
you're like making, then dissecting and putting back together.
Yeah, I got kind of excited about how kind of backwards and stupid my process is. Like maybe stupid's the wrong word. I like that it's not like super or immediately intuitive. There's definitely kind of like digital collage versus traditional collage.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything. Like everyone always thinks the way they're doing something is the best way. I personally think, let's get into it. I love a lot of digital collage, actually. Like there's some of my favorite artists are doing that right now. I do think it's a little easier to wind up in one, a very similar place to other people, and two, just like I see stuff that I'm like, you're not done. Like it's cool, but it's like messy, or it's like this part is like 72 DPI and I can really tell. I think people just get like shitty about like just kind of bashing a skull into a sort of Victorian era lady, which is like basically what I do, man. Like how dare I say that? But I think there's like sloppy versions of it that you sort of see a lot, especially for a little bit. For like a few years on Instagram, there were just so many people doing kind of like derivative stuff.
Right.
And for me, like I like that people want to make art, and I think this was a way that a lot of people felt like, oh, I can like try making pictures and it's not so intimidating, and I think that rules.
Yeah.
But I think like real traditional collage folks tend to be a lot more it's like not snobby, just like wary of that kind of work. Like there is an excitement in like, I found these two things, and when I found exactly the right way to combine them, it's like a whole new thing.
Yeah.
And the computer just gives you like a billion choices, like the thrill in it isn't, to me, I feel like you have to hold yourself to a slightly higher what's the word?
Or some it's like a higher standard because when everything's just found, you do have some limitations where you can make so many edits, digitally.
I feel like limitations on art are usually how you wind up with the coolest stuff. Like if you can do anything, it's like you put every color in there, it's eventually going to look like shit.
Right.
And in the same way, when you have like access to every image in the world, sort of, you can make anything. Something, put a pin in that because I want to talk about a lot of like current digital collage guys. I feel like are not being careful enough about like where they're sourcing their art.
Yeah, it's copyright shit.
Also bothers me sometimes. But I feel like if you are starting in the computer, it's like, why not push yourself to see, like really figure out that composition? It's not just chaos. Like you have the ability to like really build something that could be more ornate or like more carefully composed or something, Yeah. But then I see people who are doing like just fully wild shit, and I love that too. So I feel like a caveat for this entire conversation is like, I have opinions about this stuff. I care a lot about it, but I'm not like an authority on it,
I was about to say something kind of similar too, because like I don't think anyone's going to interpret it this way, but anything me or him say, just because I can tell the nature of this interview, we're going to be candid about our opinions. None of these are personal attacks if you happen to like this type of work. It's more like, what is art if you don't have some opinions?
Dude, fucking thank you. Yes. That drives me crazy. A short story about like a very nice person I was talking to who like worked at the Philly Museum of Art. And I had a teacher in school who like hated Barnett Newman. Do you know who that is? The Zips? They're just like big canvases with like a single line down them.
Yeah, I think I've seen, but I'm not that familiar.
Well, because I mean, I don't want to, again, if you love Barnett Newman, fine. When I saw that shit, it just kind of like passed right through me. I was like, cool, sure. I'm sure no one had seen that exact kind of abstraction at that time, but like, I do not care about that. He went one step further. My teacher, Tom Leonard, was like, this is bad. like, I don't think he's adding anything to the conversation. But there are arguments to be made for why it's good. Most of it's context. It's kind of like how like Pollock isn't like maybe the most talented dude. He just got there first,
Right.
And honestly, he was kind of biting his wife's style anyway, but it's a whole other conversation. So like, I was trying to get this person to talk to me just like, I was like, well, I actually don't like this stuff. Like, I don't really like Cy Twombly, which is I know everybody loves that room at the PMA. There's like a big red cloud. There's like huge canvases with literal drawings of dicks all over them. Like, it's a fun experience, but I personally just like don't respond to it. I don't think it's like the most exciting solution to the problem,
Right.
And they were just like, no, it's great, that's like an important piece of art history. It's like, yeah, no, dude, I know, but like, don't you like this shit? Like, I need you to like be passionate, or like, what's the point,
Right.
Like, it just feels so weird to like if you like everything exactly the same amount, to me that's almost like you don't like any of it that much.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
No, and it's also like, yeah, it's part of it is the dialogue, the conversation. Like you have to kind of have strong convictions, but also not be an asshole, especially to individuals. So I'm with you, man. I think it's just in this age, a lot of people are walking on eggshells, not trying to offend people. And well, I don't want to be, crass for the sake of it. I just want to be able to speak my piece about why I like something or don't.
See, but that's not offensive to me. You could tell me my favorite band or artist, like you don't like them, and I'd be like, okay, I do. If you're like, they suck, like you're stupid for liking it, then I start getting a little hurt. But like,
yeah.
I don't think there's anything like inherently offensive or mean about just like caring about something so much that you either don't or do like it very much. I also like, I've had my opinion changed. I think that's like the main thing. Like if you are open to actually having someone like explain something that they really love that you don't get, and it like helps you understand it better. Like maybe you don't still love it, but it probably would change the way you feel about it. That's like the ultimate way to experience any art, I think. It's like, yeah. I don't know about you, man. When I first started listening to death metal, I was like, what are these vocals? I hate it. When I was like 16 or whatever, like I just wanted more Converge or whatever. I'm old. And then
you started more with like hardcore and then went into metal. Okay.
And so I was like, I don't know about these like gurgles, And it's like, now I fucking love that shit. Like it's an acquired taste. And like someone had to be like, okay, but check out this band, And so like, I think if you just cut yourself off from all this stuff, like you're missing out on something. Like there's two parts of this. It's good to have strong opinions, but like, as long as you're open to what other people are saying, like, I don't think you're ever being a dickhead. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I
I am
completely
excited
agree.
to hear the things that you do and don't like, especially if it's my work. If you
No,
want to talk shit.
I'm not saying this to flatter you. I like all your work, man, especially the more I dug into it, because especially when you actually have it hand cut and there's the physical thing right there, it shows that there's so much more skill to it than what you were talking about earlier with just like photo bashing kind of shit together. Like it separates to the next echelon of skill. Once again, I'm not trying to flatter you. I'll bring you down a couple pegs, but your art, I do really, really enjoy. Especially how versatile you are and like seeing some of those like comic illustrations. Cause like another thing you probably should know about me. I'm not completely ignorant to art history and stuff, but I didn't go to art school. So there's differences in anytime I've talked to somebody who's went to art school and people who haven't, there's different comparisons and understandings of certain things. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to do like a who's better than what, of course. It's just like there'll be references that you're very familiar with that I'm going to have no clue because I wasn't exposed to that world as much.
Yeah. That's I mean, the shitty thing about art is it's kind of made for a very small group of people. It's
Right.
like, I don't know, you play music?
Yeah, I'm a drummer.
Okay, me too. I'm a bad drummer, but like, I feel like I'm
a very rusty drummer.
Okay, same.
Yeah.
But like, you know, when you first started learning and you're like, oh shit, this is hard. And then you kind of started listening to the drums and music more. Like,
oh yeah.
I immediately understood. I'm like, oh, there's like so much happening in every song I like that I just truly was not paying attention to. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, it doesn't take art school. It's like once you start thinking about art, you're going to start, or like making art is honestly the truth. You're going to look at it differently. And so I think like there's a lot of shit you learn in art school that's like, here is the right thing, or like, here's the history. And there's a lot of like, you know, you're in conversation with your influences and stuff. That is not necessary, but it's the thing that you're told initially is like how this works, especially in fine art. And
right.
Like you can repeat yourself, and it's like very important to have this whatever. So I think that stuff is like, I love learning about art history because I love art and pictures. It's fun to look at it. But the like gatekeeping part of it, I think, is like super gross and part of the reason that people feel like intimidated by this shit. Or why, like, have you seen any of the like AI discourse about like these artists on their, you know, high horses and their ivory towers making like thousands of dollars and shit? They're like, we're finally taking like art back to people. It's like, no, man, I'm poor. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know. The point being, like, people think of artists as like so elitist, and like, I don't think that's the case. But the things like art school shit makes it feel that way.
Right.
Maybe because literally you have to pay like $40,000 a year to just have someone like explain a bunch of old paintings to you. You know, like, good for you for not going to art school.
Yeah. I mean, I think we both can agree that like being a working artist is closer to like a blue collar job than a lot of people realize, in the sense of like intense work ethic, and it's all about the hours, man, you put in. So
I helped my friend out. There's like a Christmas village in the center of Philly.
Yeah.
And I helped. They work at this puzzle shack, isn't this whatever? I can't think of the other word. And I just helped them, like, honestly put things in a truck, like a bunch of puzzles in a truck, and deliver them to that place. And I got paid more, like a better hourly wage doing that for 2 days than I do for like any of my art. It's like I am a more valuable part of society when I'm literally just picking things up and putting them down.
There's your humility right there, but they're knocking you down a couple pegs.
Yeah,
right there.
I enjoy art more, and I understand. I mean, maybe theoretically, it contributes to society, but I don't know if it does, man. People like puzzles more than they like my art. Point is, I think what I do generally is a lot more like I do a whole bunch of jobs all the time, so I can like pay my rent and then hopefully buy myself a coffee sometimes. You know?
Yeah.
I think it's people have this perception that like all artists are kind of the most famous artists. Mm-hmm. Who are millionaires, but they are also like, dude, there's like so few of them, and now it's like the same guys that were millionaires in the 90s.
Right.
Like there aren't really new.
It's just legacy. There's only a few. There's, you know, like people. I mean, maybe he'd be like one of the only people. I'm not trying to bring up like the integrity of his art. I'm just saying he's somebody who's rich and.
I'm sorry. He is actually a collage artist also. Like, I have to admit, like that dude, he has like he created all these things and he mashes them together. Like, I don't even hate his work. I just think he's like kind of. I guess if we're talking about it, I think he's a little scummy, especially because that NFT shit.
Yes.
But
I'm not. Yeah.
I know. I'm sorry. I have a lot of opinions.
I saw immediately you were triggered right when I said that. All I was saying is the dude is rich. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I know. He is. You're right. He's also like, if you were like name a famous, I was about to be like, what's the most famous artist right now? And like Beeple is like excellent answer. Like that is one of them. Yeah. Or like a dude on TikTok who paints those like train portraits or whatever, you know? Like
I don't know that guy.
Good. That's me. He's good. He's a really talented guy. I just don't think his art is like, wow, I'm a fucking dickhead. I don't respond to it personally. I don't think it's the same as when like in the 50s, it's like, you know, there were famous artists who like fuck, there's no Andy Warhol, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like his work or not, like there aren't like, again, that same teacher in art school was like, you know, when I was a kid, like illustrators were at like red carpet events, like dressed to the nines, and now we're all like standing in line at Wawa for a Sizzly. I think about that like every day.
I've seen some memes that are like that, where it's like filming of the new Joker movie with like Lady Gaga, and it's like, this is what artists actually look like. I don't know if you've seen that meme. It's pretty funny. You'll stumble upon it sometime like a year from now. I guess another artist who I think he's not super well known, but has. I mean, this is an artist that I really like. So if you don't like him, I'd be kind of surprised. But I mean, James Jean is pretty successful and very skilled. He has that good marriage, you know. Like I look to his work a lot for inspiration.
I really like that he was willing to just like completely change everything he did.
Yeah, because he started in comics, right? Or he had a lot of involvement in comics, didn't he?
Yeah, he did covers. That's true. That's actually part of in school. I was like really his Fables art, or the covers they did for Fables, I thought were like so cool. That was kind of like the inspiration for how that was the direction I was trying to head in. Since you mentioned this, I know you were like, you want to talk about artists that I'm excited about right now. Do you know, man, I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's like Joao Ruas, Joao. He actually took over for James Jean doing those Fables covers.
No, I haven't.
His work is so sick.
Yeah.
He's like one of my favorite living dudes. But anyway, sorry, getting off topic. James Jean, I think, is like one of the things that's admirable about him is he's like crazy talented. And he just like at some point was like, I kind of just do these like patterns and like really crazy print releases now.
Yeah.
And it's easy to feel like you should just keep doing the same thing if people are responding to it. So like I loved his Fables stuff. I like it like a little more than I like his new work, but there's like no denying how talented he is.
It's a little more minimalistic and stylized. He had a more elaborate style back like probably 12 years ago or so.
And like, I'm like, part of me is like, hell yeah, you're making this like not for me. Does that make sense? Like
totally.
Like even if I'm like not personally like looking at his posts all the time, it's like that guy's making that because he likes it and he's obviously still really good at it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the, you know, if you're thinking about like what being an artist is, it shouldn't be just like pandering to what is getting you kind of like the response you want. I, as an illustrator, like I have to do some of that because my career is dependent on it. But I have to like deliver the art that my art director asks for. But I think it's really cool when an artist is able, like him, who's like so established, can be like, okay, this is what I do now, and if you like it, you know, here it is.
100%. Well, another artist that I've been really interested in his work recently is, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing, he's in comics as well. Matthias Bergara with Coda.
Yeah,
dude, his stuff I just love how there's like whimsical qualities to it. The brushwork is so interesting and like he has a spontaneity, man. It's really inspiring. He
is one of those dudes that like, I'm trying to say this in like he makes me mad because he makes it look easy.
He does. Like, and that's what I love about it. He makes it look so effortless.
It's that, what's that book? Is that Coda?
Coda's, yeah. And I just bought it and I haven't even read it. I just am looking through the pictures and just blown away.
Yeah. I know he's like that combination of like inspiration and also kind of makes me want to quit. Like he's just so good. It doesn't seem like he ever struggles. I'm sure that's not true, but yeah, I really love his work a lot. Do you know Trad Moore?
I know the name, but I've not placed anything.
He did like I'm not really reading like Marvel books as much anymore. Like not because I'm like too good for them. It's just I'm a weirdo and I like weird books. But he did a Doctor Strange comic recently that's like so out there. Like it's really wild. Like like, I don't know, I'm also just excited to see them like letting Doctor Strange be a weirdo.
Mm-hmm.
But I would check his work out if you like Bergara. They're not like super similar, but it's a similar like approach where it's like it just looks like he farts out these masterpieces, and I want to kill myself. Maybe.
I also love this wave of like comic illustrators who have watercolor as part of their process. Like, I mean, I know some of it's digital and stuff, but you can tell that like they kind of come from that school of thought with like the loose brushwork and then some like slightly tighter inks on top. Like that kind of stuff's just really inspirational to me, because that's, aside from just doing black and white, pen and ink work, I pretty much do watercolor and mixed media for color related. So I'm not currently doing any digital work at all, mostly just because I don't really I don't know it that well. I'm not skilled at it yet.
I've heard a lot of people talk about how that feels like it's a big, like there's a barrier to entry, because you do literally have to spend money to get like an iPad or whatever.
Yeah.
And it just sucks having to like, I've been using Photoshop since I was like, 15 or something, like that's why I feel comfortable in it. There's like a million things you can do, and I'm still learning stuff. So there is an immediacy to just like drawing on paper that like just makes sense. And it does feel like you're like working through like a weird, like I have to like go backwards to get to the same thing. I spent a lot of time trying to fake texture that you could just do with like a paintbrush and like, but since you brought it up, I want to mention my bud Kate, who I was helping out at the puzzle thing, just released a book called Constellations.
Okay.
Or like this year, not just. That's like a watercolor with like kind of crunchy pen and ink line work over it, which you should check out. I also just think it's like a really sick book. Is
it a graphic novel?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
it's through Holiday House, I think. So it's like, an actual book publisher. But you can find it at comic shops. But it's like a super personal, really intense, like, I don't want to get too much into it. But like slice of life plus like addiction and like gender dysphoria stuff. Like it's a really interesting book. Super good. If not, I mean, you should check it out. Everyone should check it out, but it does sound like you would like it.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks, man. So where did your art journey start then? Were you drawing as a kid?
Yeah. I would like every little dork, that I know, I guess. I was like copying like Street Fighter manuals and like drawing Sonic the Hedgehog and stuff, I was like so into comics and video games and like just like the art side of it. I thought was really cool.
How old are you? Just so I know kind of your like generational stuff.
Like 6, 1991. I was like buying Marvel cards and like staring at them and like photocopying pages out of How to Draw the Marvel Way from like the school library and stuff.
Nice.
And I was like really wanted to do comics. I used to like draw little kid comics, but I asked my parents if I could go to art school when I was like 6, which I remember.
Very forward of you.
It just sounded fun. I don't know. They were like really supportive from the very beginning, which is like, I'm so lucky, like there's a lot of things about my life that honestly, the privilege, right? Like my parents encouraged that. They've been really cool about me pursuing art for like my whole life. And they also like, when I was like, hey, I really like drawings, like I'm interested in art and would like to see more of it. They were like, cool, let's like figure out how to do that, as opposed to like, no, stop wasting your time. But yeah, they were, my mom and dad were like super supportive. They would like take me to the art museum and stuff, which I actually hated at the time. So I was like, where's Spider-Man or whatever. But it like soaks in. But yeah, I got like a big weeb when I was a teenager. I got like super into anime in the 90s. And like I was reading like tons of probably comics I shouldn't have been reading yet. But at that time, I don't know, how old are you?
So I'm 32, so you're just a little older than me.
Yeah, I'm just enough older that like the way you found like manga in the 90s was like you had to go to some like weird spots. Like I was in like some guy's like dirty little hole in the wall comic shop, like looking through like a bunch of sleazy shit, to be honest. But then when you find something cool, it was like it really felt like I was like on a little treasure hunt.
Totally.
I was like so into, I don't know, Otomo and all those old guys. I love like Ranma, like Rumiko Takahashi's, like all that stuff she made. I thought was like really sick. And like I was actually trying to save this for my big list of people I love. But I was reading like Parasite. Do you remember Parasite? There's a newer version of it. I don't know how much of a dork you are. Also, you seem like you've got your life together to some degree.
I mean, I'm a dork, but like, I actually, it's funny enough, I probably know more about music, specifically metal, than I know about comic books or manga. Right. I like that stuff. I'm actually, so just kind of make my parallels. My thing when I was 6 was Goosebumps.
Hell yeah.
I was obsessed.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
The Goosebumps books. So like Tim Jacobus ends up being one of my like initial inspirations. I was making my own Goosebumps covers.
Yeah.
And then
that's so
my
sick.
age too, at the same time, you know, Pokemon was coming out. And I was I was that generation of the Poke Fever. You might have been just a little too old for that. But for like anyone who's like 30 to like, 28 to 32, you know, like that shit was crazy. So I had those, you know, the black speckled composition books.
Yeah.
I filled 2 of those things up with an entire Pokemon thing that I made up, like all these, like 100 Pokemon, because I'll get back to you. But
no, I want to hear this. This is the best.
So, dude, my thing was, I was drawn since I was like 3 or 4. It was a compulsion. You know, I'm that same kind of person where I was obsessed. But it was always monsters and characters. That was my form of art. It was just creating these characters, which is similar to comic book, you know. But I was raised by very like tennis, like athletic family.
Okay.
So I would basically tag along to all these tennis tournaments that my sister was doing because, you know, she was trying to basically work towards getting really, really good. Yeah. And that entire time I got my composition book and I'm just drawing. Yeah. So I was pretty much raised, you know, doing a lot of like sports related stuff, kind of on the sidelines. This is no shade against my parents; they're excellent. Just I found art kind of completely on my own. It was kind of like on my own little island, you know.
Totally. I think that's the way it is for a lot of people. It feels like it's a personal thing, you know. Like sports, you're usually doing with at least someone you're competing against, right?
Yeah.
And part of the reason I think like parents often are like, you should try a sport, is it's like you learn teamwork, right?
Oh, 100%.
And art is like a totally solitary thing. Like I would be up super late, like drawing comics alone, like when my parents went to sleep to like sneak them out. Like I felt like it was like a secret. Anyway, I never put together the like, obviously Goosebumps is like it makes perfect sense if you're into metal. Like it's the same kind of iconography, but it's for little kids, you know, like goopy shit, monsters coming at you. Like the reason I like who's that guy? This is something I should know. The guy that painted like all the Death album.
Ed Repka.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a similar style.
It's like, that's like the entryway, man. The gateway drug to that kind of like gruesome, super like satisfying, gory painting. No, I would really like those covers. I read like a couple of them, but I was like a little too old. But the art on them was like the thing I was really stoked about.
There's something playful about them too that I love.
Yeah. I honestly think there's something playful about a lot of death metal, you know? Like that Undeath album, not Rise from Your Grave or whatever, like the one before that, has like the silliest album cover.
With the beheading and there's like these slime kind of things. Yeah.
Is that,
and that's the drummer who makes the album artwork.
Nice.
Which I always like it when it's like it stays within the band. There's always something kind of cool about that.
I think that's great, except that I want them to hire me, so I'm mad about it. Save some for an illustrator, you know?
Yeah, fair enough.
No, it's great. I'm joking. I think it's great when a band actually can like keep it all entirely inside the like.
No,
it feels very of the band, but that album cover is so fun and silly, and there's like goo everywhere, and like there's like neon green shit flying off this guy's head, and I don't know. I think like that feeling part is that band. Like they're like, you know, it's death metal, but they're pretty fun. It's approachable in a certain way.
100%.
Like, do you remember seeing like Cannibal Corpse art for the first time?
Oh yeah. And
like I was like genuinely upset. Like some of it is like really fucked. And I was a kid, but still I was like, what's that like though? Like I want to know more about that.
There's a curiosity to it, yeah.
Yep.
I think what's your favorite Cannibal Corpse album cover?
Man, put me on the spot. Give me a second. I like the old ones. because they just feel a little scarier.
A little more painterly as well.
Yeah, like I do like their new art. I think they always try. The funny thing is, I think my favorite Cannibal Corpse album is Kill, when it has like no art. Like it looks like shit. But yeah, dude, like these like watercolory ones, Eaten Back to Life, like that's such a good image.
Yeah, dude, I love that one. That's all. It's probably a tie between Tomb of the Mutilated and or not Tomb of the Mutilated, Butcher at Birth. And
that was the one I was. Yeah, that's the other one.
Butcher at Birth is so iconic. But Eaten Back to Life, man, I just love the flesh flinging out, like the way he painted that was really cool.
It's got the like 80s VHS horror movie cover feeling.
Totally.
Oh, dude. Yeah, was it Tomb of the Mutilated is the one where I was like, I shouldn't see this.
That one goes too far.
I was like 8, you know? But obviously, I mean, I remembered it. Anyway, I would love to just fucking list all the cool metal album covers I liked over the years.
What metal albums have you been, or just regular music, have you been spinning lately? Like what's been kind of turning your head?
Okay. So I got a Horrendous.
Dude, that album rules.
The album is so good. I love all those dudes. They're like the sweetest guys. And just like I've liked all their albums, but I think this is like I think they found exactly like the spot for them.
Yeah.
But I really like Fossilization. You know them?
Mm-hmm. I haven't listened to their latest album, but I've heard really good things. But I know the sound. It's slightly incantation-ish type of death metal.
Gross. Like, yeah. I love that dude's vocals. They're like my blender broke, you know, like scary, almost not music. But yeah, that album, that new one's really good. I've been listening to that LEP. I love Thanafaxath. They're like among my favorites, and that album.
Great live.
Yeah, I saw them once. This place called the Shred Shed in Philly, and they like there was like they were building. I think like they had just built condos, maybe right next to this place. It was literally a shed outside behind someone's apartment in like Kensington, Fishtown, basically. But I think it was right when people were starting to live there, so they made them like just play the show in the living room. It was like even more surreal and insane. Like these dudes still in robes, like But it was sick, man. Like they're I love that band. Sorry if you can hear people screaming and dogs barking.
Yeah, I'm hearing something, but no, it's cool. It sounds like the parents in like the Peanuts, cartoons. That's what it sounds like. Dude, they're excellent live. I like too how they're like not like after the show, like they just took their robes off, and it's like, yeah, that's just what we do on the performance. We're not like higher than that, holier than thou, like they were still very approachable and very friendly. I
actually like my friends who don't listen to a lot of metal like make fun of this, but I like the like theatricality.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, it's fun, right? Like, I don't know how you feel. Like I was really into Behemoth in like 2004, and like finally saw them a few years later, and like I like that band. I haven't been listening to their new albums really, but I saw them right after The Satanist or whatever, and they had like they were swinging that like Catholic incense ball and like shooting blood out into the audience and shit, and it's like on paper I see how that's kind of like Gwar or something, but also Gwar fucking rules. Like I don't know, I think it's fun to go see a show where they're like putting on a performance for you.
Yeah.
And like Imperial Triumphant. Just driving down the street honking. They like open a champagne bottle and like pour the audience like a glass and shit. Like I don't know. Like, I think that stuff rules. Why not? And then sometimes I go see like normal music. I think it's regular music is what you called it. And it's cool, but I'm like, where's all the weird shit? I'm just looking at the guy play a guitar. Like, come on. What about you? What have you been listening to?
I'll stick with something non-metal first.
Okay.
So there's this band called Wand. Have you ever heard them before? It's kind of like a psych rock. So basically, I had only heard their newest album called Laughing Matter, and it's a little more Radiohead influence. It's very good.
Yeah.
But then Nate Garrett of Spirited Drift, he has a really good podcast on YouTube. I watch every episode. But he was talking about their earlier albums, and I just got hooked because that's exactly my thing. Like I love death metal, black metal, all that kind of like more extreme stuff. But I love 60s inspired, like garage rock, psychedelic rock, like that kind of stuff's really cool to me. So Wand kind of has a little bit of that like fuzz type of thing that I really enjoy. And
are you like a Ty Segall guy?
Yeah, although like I don't listen to his music all the time because I like that type of sound, but I do like stuff that's like I like trying to find like uncovered gems actually from the 60s and the 70s. So it's like the hunt of it is really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ty Segall's really good too. Like OCs, I love that shit.
OCs is like untouchable.
Yeah.
I have a similar thing. Like I don't know. I'm turning into reaching my ultimate grandpa zone. Where I'm just looking for like dumb jazz fusion from the 70s.
Oh yeah.
They're like re-releasing. There's a band called the fucking Jazzberry Patch, and it's just dudes with these big mustaches, and like it's so embarrassing, but I really like it. And then like I bought some like I mean like everyone my age like Nigerian jazz I think is really fucking good from like that sweet spot, you know. I've been like trying to buy records that are like that I only listen to on the record. So I got a few of those that are like I don't know, I own a bunch of metal that like will sound better through my headphones than through my shitty record player. Right. So I like try to have like a whatever. This is boring, but like the vibe I want to be slightly different. I'm finding I'm like listening to records on Sunday morning while I like drink coffee, and I'm not always trying to listen to Alterage or whatever. I literally can't hear the riffs when I put that album on because my speakers aren't nice enough. You know that band?
Alter Ridge?
Like Alter, like Altarage. I think they're Spanish.
What genre is that?
Like Portal Light, basically. That's mean.
Okay.
I love that band, but they sound like Portal. They're like so like gross.
I haven't checked them out. No, I thought for a second you were saying Alter Bridge, like the Creed guitarist band.
Yeah, my other favorite album. I would recommend checking out the first couple Alterage albums. I think they're like super sick. I cannot speak to Altered Bridge. I've not listened to that.
I had not until this morning listened to the End album that you did the album cover for, but I thought that was really, really good. Not like something I normally go for. It's kind of like a metallic hardcore, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of they clearly came from the same era that like I grew up in, you know? And I hadn't really been listening to a ton of music like that either, but I saw them. It's like that show. It's like Inter Arma, Full of Hell, and Wake. It's like I love all of those bands.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen End before, and they were like, they fucking killed it. They were so much fun, and like the new album, I think is like going in some kind of interesting directions. I like it a lot. I'm like,
it's gotten a lot of pretty much universal praise from all the reviews. And the Afterbirth album I love because that's very much like my taste. Like I love the skronky, weird, brutal death metal. So like I thought they killed it, man. This release is excellent.
They are like so nice to work with. Also, actually, both of them. I work with a lot of bands that are like, I mostly have a really good experience. A lot of times they just don't really know what they want. But Afterbirth was like, we like your work, and you just like make something that feels like our band, and like that's always going to turn out better, you know. And the guys from End had like a really specific thing that they wanted, and we like found it, you know. It's just that's like whatever. Not trying to be. It's nice to have like fucking good experiences in this business.
Totally.
I feel like it took a long time, but now it's like the bands I work with are almost all really cool and also making albums I like. That's a rare combination.
I think this is the case in so many industries, but the so like for instance, my wife is like a designer, so she's artistically inclined as well, but like working with a small local company that has no idea what they're doing, they don't know common business practices, and they want like 1 million edits. Yeah. And for like such a small amount, but then you can work with a bigger band, they have like 2 edits and you get paid like triple. So it's like the bigger the band, the client, almost the easier the process is because they're confident enough in themselves that they're just like, this is good. You know what I mean? Like they don't feel the need to do unnecessary edits and things kind of like that. I don't know if you obviously have a lot more experience there than me, but it's something I've noticed.
Definitely. No, you're right. I think like the reason is complicated It might just be that they've been doing it long enough that they know how annoying it is to have someone like kind of asking for a lot of bullshit. But I think also like once you're a band long enough, you're like, okay, I know what our aesthetic is, and I'll just reach out to the person who I think has that aesthetic. And I think a lot of times like a younger band will just be like, I was working with this one band for a while that literally one time they were like, look, man, you're the only person I know who knows how to do this. And they'd ask me for something that like wasn't anything like what I do. It's just I was the only artist they knew, you know?
Right.
And that they're nice enough guys, but it was like clear that it's like you want someone who does something different. Like the way that sometimes I'll submit sketches that are like too far. Like I basically finished like 4 pieces.
Yeah.
And then when someone asks me for revisions, I'm like grumpy about it, but that's my fault, you know? But I do think if you even starting out, man, like you're allowed to advocate for yourself. I think everyone should. If a band's getting really annoying about like we need like a million changes or like start over, or like, you know, you're allowed to be like, I would do that, but we got to, you know, renegotiate. The best way to do it, honestly, is just in the beginning, be like, hey, I'd love to work with you. We'll, you know, after sketches, like you get like 3 revisions, and then I'd have to charge you.
Right.
That way
they can have a contract.
I don't, you know, yes, I don't have contracts.
Or at least your statement of work.
Yeah, in writing, so you can refer to it later. But no one's like, well, with very rare exceptions, I find most people aren't trying to screw you over. I think everybody's just like looking to get the result that they want, and a lot of times people don't really know how to do that, especially like young bands. You know, sometimes I'm working with the dudes who are like 20. And they just like, I know I like some album covers, but I don't really know what ours should look like, and I don't really want to have to like be the person that shows that to them, that like helps them figure out that part. But like, I don't know, if it's your friends or if you're like just so stoked to be like doing an album cover, then you put up with that stuff.
Right.
But I think something I wish I had been better about and more people had said to me is it is okay to like value your time and to like you do. Yeah, you put up with a lot. Like I still get paid like shit hourly, but you can have a limit. Like you set the boundary yourself.
Right.
Opening a seltzer. I want you to know I'm not drinking at 11:57 a.m.
Fair enough. What else? I guess what are some like common art traps that you find yourself in from time to time? We're talking a little bit about that. So it could be like mindset things. It could be even due to the actual technicality of the work or putting in the time. Like, I guess, where does your mind kind of wander in a negative direction sometimes?
Yeah. So there's a lot of answers to this question. It's a good question. I should have been saying that more. You're asking me things.
It's a bit loaded, but yeah.
I mean, cool. A lot of it comes, I think, from like social media stuff, which like I know that's not a hot take, but their platforms are not set up to help you. They're set up to like feed endless eyeballs, right?
Totally.
So sometimes it's easy to be like, oh, I guess this thing I made wasn't good because maybe it didn't hit right, or like honestly, sometimes because it's literally not a video. Like I don't like making reels. I don't belong on TikTok because I'm a million years old. I don't want to like. Honestly, like maybe this is stubborn to me, but I don't really feel like I want to be a performer. Like I want to make the art.
Right.
That's already like the performance for me. I don't want to have to then like present it in this like kind of
To me, it's to get into a true flow state. It's a very personal and isolated thing. If Absolutely. I know that there's a camera going after, I have to worry about how my stroke's going to look with the camera. I'm already making shitty lines, dude. Yep. I make the worst fucking lines when that thing's looking at me. So I'm with you.
Mm-hmm. It's unfair. Yeah, it feels like you're setting yourself up. But then also just the mental shit of like, you know, did enough people like this? Should I keep doing it? And it's like, that's what I'm talking about with James Jean. It's like, he's at a point where he doesn't need to worry about it. Right. But if you're honest with yourself about what you actually want to do with your art, it's usually at odds with the things that the internet is telling you should do. So it's really easy, I think, to get stuck making something that's like, oh, Instagram likes when I make that. Is that what I'm interested in?
Right.
And just like imposter syndrome, you know, it's like, especially as a collage artist, like just going to art school, even I was like, am I allowed to do this? Is this like, am I completing the illustration assignment if I do it in collage? So I still have like, I have to remind myself that it's okay. Like I'm allowed to do it. It's still fucking art. Yeah. But yeah, dude, I spend too many hours on things sometimes. there's like a trap where like I don't want to make something that I don't like, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, else what are you doing this for? But sometimes, not like the advice isn't to make bad art, but sometimes I know I'm putting in more hours than like I'm getting paid for, or like that then the client even appreciates. I don't think I have a really hard time with that one. Like I would rather make something, then it kind of becomes for me. It's
Right.
like I want to finish it because I want it to look as best as it can or whatever.
Well, it shows that you care, but there is a line that you can cross where it's like you're making these minuscule changes that don't have any impact, but you're spending 5 hours on them.
Yeah. I think like really knowing how to budget your time and having like the self-respect or whatever like the right term is to like be able to call it, to be like, this is finished for this project.
Yeah.
You can always go back and work on it more. The Leviathan cover, the Paul Romano painting for that Macedon album.
Oh yeah.
He's
like Philly based, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He that painting is just hanging at Arch Enemy. Like I can go see it pretty much anytime.
So cool.
Yeah. He just did like a new show, kind of it's like a smaller body of work by his standards, but it's like really great shit. If I don't know if you're in the Philly area, if anyone.
Yeah. Well, he's on my list to reach out to. I haven't yet, but maybe
Definitely.
I can get him on the show.
You should 100% do that. He's a super interesting person with like, man, I visited his studio once and it was like floor to ceiling shelves of like incredible art books. Like that guy is so knowledgeable.
He's a collector as well.
Yeah. And just like, man, he's like an artist from 100 years ago. Like he works, I don't know, I'm not trying to just like blow smoke up this dude's ass. I love Paul Romano. I would consider him a friend. I hope when he sees this, he's not like gross, but just like approaches his work in a very honest way. And I think that's cool. And for sure has a ton of stuff to say about art, and he listens to like weird shit. He just texted me a band I'd never heard of before in my life. It was like 21-minute songs. And like, so like he's genuinely living the life in like pretty much every way. Anyway,
that's cool.
The reason I brought him up, that painting was like not done in his mind when he submitted it to the band. And he like, for I don't know, a long time, dude, like was still working on it and like adding stuff. I think it's done now. It's like framed and hanging, but like I try to remind myself that like a thing can be done for the project, and then if I want to return to it and actually like finish it in my mind, like that can still happen.
Wait, can I clarify? So I remember a long time, it was like 10 years ago, I saw a documentary that was by Macedon and showed some of the art. Is the Leviathan section just one section of a larger painting?
Yeah, and there's some of those pieces are included in the album art.
Right.
But it's like the whale is like the center, and it's huge. It's like this gigantic square. And I think he had like done little bits of the corners to like use in the album, but he didn't feel like it was finished. I think any other person would have. But like he went back and refined it more and more, and it just looks better. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like the part he needed for the album cover is done. I'm not saying Paul phoned it in or whatever. Like,
I'm not saying that. Yeah.
Also, don't think you should finish the part that's going to be like the cover. Like you got to have like that part needs to sing. But if there's like the little minute details we're talking about, like pouring 5 hours into, like you can always do that just for you.
Right.
I forget what you asked me at this point.
Well, we're just talking about art traps. No, it's cool.
Yeah. Do you what stuff gets in your head?
The same, but for me right now, I do commissions periodically and license like the stuff that I produce, but I have different lifestyle than you, right? So I do 9-to-5 job. This is my escape. You know what I mean? And then for now, I actually like that balance because I just create art that I truly like and that comes out of my imagination. Yeah. So I guess I like that freedom. You know what I mean? And with that, I've always been that way. So it's not good for everybody. Some people need the deadlines. They need the projects. For me, I just am my own boss with that stuff. Not trying to say it's just something that I have that, some people, they like to have the deadlines of the projects. Yeah.
There's different ways to think about it. I know a lot of people say they enjoy the balance more when they know they have like money coming from somewhere. Because they can say no to like, I would have said no to some stuff, I have to pay my rent. So sometimes I can't. And I have some pals who just like have a job somewhere and they're totally happy, and like there is no shame in that in my mind.
Right.
It's
No,
one of the ways to do it.
I think me being more mature has helped with knowing that, and also with the show. To be frank, half the people I have in the show are full time. Half the people do the same thing I do, and they're both working with bands. So it's just kind of the nature of being an artist nowadays, because it's difficult, like you said, to afford shit.
How many bands do you know that are full time? Like
I know
all these guys we're talking about that like I think of as incredibly like successful and established. Like half of them still have a day job somewhere, you know?
Yeah. So I think a lot of it's just the reality of what it's like to be an artist nowadays. But maybe I'll work towards full time. I don't know. In terms of trap specifically, I mean, the social media thing for sure. Just like checking my phone and caring too much and getting neurotic about it, to a point that it's not helpful. But I recognize it, just like you're saying, who cares how many likes or something gets? But then there's also some like, well, if something has a good first impression, then I must have done something right. So it can be a little valuable. It's just if you take too much weight into it, it can like skew your work too much. But taking some audience feedback, I think, is a good thing.
Totally. Yeah.
Procrastination sometimes, I always have big pieces and I have small pieces. The small pieces are my excuses for when I don't want to carve up the time for the big piece. Because it's like, do I do this highly rendered neck on this larger piece, but I might not have I might make a mistake because I didn't sleep enough, So it's like, I'll just work in the sketchbook. So I do funnel it into something constructive, but I take too long with some of these big pieces, I think, than I should. But that's just me being hard on myself too. So
yeah, I think that balance is actually like an important thing that you that helps to have like the full-time art, because you kind of can't baby them too much,
right?
Because there's a deadline,
Yeah.
I think like taking some of the weight off of that helps me personally. That's more about like my own anxiety or whatever. Because like if I didn't have to, I might always be like, oh, I should wait like until I'm exactly in the right state of mind.
Oh God, yeah.
Like,
such a trap, man.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are days where like I have a little bit of a tremor, like my dad has it too.
Yeah.
And especially like if I haven't eaten or if I'm real caffeinated or whatever, like I'll, it's not like real bad, but I gotta think about it.
Right.
And some days like I just have to cut that day. That like I have to do the literal physical like paper cutting, and it's like I can do that even when I'm getting the wiggles, at least at this stage. And if I didn't force myself to do it, like I feel like I just wouldn't get shit done.
Right.
And it was like, I don't know, learning that weirdly like empowering, it's like this shit just has to get done. It is a job. And eventually you learn to just like trust yourself,
Yeah. A lot of it is just trusting yourself. I think you're 100% right on that.
It doesn't come the easiest to me, even still.
Another question this is, I'm sure you're going to have opinions. It's a thought-provoking question, just to kind of like, just to like open it up. But like, what do you think? Let's say you look at 5 pieces of art and you judge one of them as being good, amateur. There's like good, great, and then like amateurish / mediocre. What do you think are the common reasons why art might fall into those different buckets? Like, what are some of the common mistakes you might see with something that's kind of mediocre? Or what do you determine as being great art and whatnot? This is an absolute answer, just talking.
I'm sure like an hour after we stop talking, I'm going to like hate my answer to this question. There's so many things, right?
Yeah.
I think with mediocre stuff, or like, honestly, amateurish is a good word, where like you can just tell someone's starting and maybe it's not like it's bad. It's just kind of like, oh, you still got some shit to learn.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's as easy as just like that hand looks wrong, Like everyone is guilty of that sometimes. Like I don't care who you are. Like I love Rembrandt. Dude couldn't paint hands. But so like sometimes there's a thing where I'm like, you're not quite maybe confident enough, Like your lines don't look like you feel at home. But a big one for me is like consistency. So if there's like a really different approach that doesn't look like you did it on purpose, that
within one piece or within a body of work?
Both. So like, let's say you look like you can draw the hell out of a face, but then I'm like, oh, I see how nervous they are drawing like arms or whatever, you know? That's like, to me, I'm like, okay, so they're getting there, but like I can tell they've got more room to grow before it feels like a totally cohesive thing.
Right.
And I'm just talking about like line drawing or like painting, I guess, right now. So like everyone has things that they're better at, including like my favorite artists and whatever, like I was saying with Rembrandt or whatever. But if it looks consistent, it immediately is going to put it in a different category. So like, I don't know, Paolo Girardi. Like, I don't love every single painting that dude does, but I love a whole bunch of them.
Right.
And I think like, even when you get up close and you're like, wow, like a lot of those figures are actually like really kind of loosely rendered. You see like as a whole, it's just like so confident. That dude knows exactly how he's building this image. It's like the light is all in the right spot. And so like, you can tell he's like, here is the focus of this painting. Both like the focal point literally in the composition, but also like I will be painting like with color and composition and light, and that's what's going to make it. Or like Adam Burke, sure you know his work.
He's
like,
done on the show.
Cool. I love his art. He's like, you know, no shit, right? He's done a whole lot of really cool, but like
really nice dude too.
Yeah. He knows how to like economy of like line, and his like sometimes he uses like really loose brush strokes. When you get closer, like how the fuck did you do that? Yeah. And so like it can feel when you see someone who's not in control like that kind of gives it away. And so like he, again, it's confidence, it's like experience, but he knows where to put the marks so it makes it look like your eye is drawn to the part and that's rendered, and then you can kind of loosen up around it.
Well, one thing you're hitting on too, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
I was saying one thing you're kind of hitting home on is that, you know, artists have a lot of experience and confidence. They know that the person who's looking at the art is going to interpret the image and fill in the gaps. Whereas it might be tempting for an artist who doesn't have as much experience, if they're attempting the same kind of style, but everything is way too tightly rendered and it's like this, when you should be thinking more of this, they're losing sight of it. So I didn't mean to interrupt you though.
No, you're right. Or like, like over rendered in a way where you lose the bigger picture. So like every piece is like has a highlight on it, but then you're kind of like, where the fuck do I look? You know,
you don't obscure enough, you know?
Or like, I also like stuff that's like really maximalist. So like, it's just being in control is the big thing. I personally think you should have a color scheme. When I see stuff sometimes where I'm like, you're just throwing everything, you know, it's really, color is hard. And you can really, for me, you can really fuck something up, like a really cool image, by just like applying it in a way that isn't working for what you're doing. But yeah, like it's tough, like, cause so much mediocre is such a mean word. I feel like there's no, it's not your fault, but like there's a ton of like work that's actually good. It's just like, it's fine. It's doing the job. I think the thing to focus more on is like, what's the thing that you really want to do with your art, and how can you be as good at that as possible? And that's then you start to feel like, oh, that's that person's style, or like they're very confident in the thing that they do, and then like the things that don't work totally, like maybe it doesn't matter as much.
Right.
Do you know Edward Kinsella? He's like an illustrator. Yeah, I don't think he's done much album art, but for a while, like the stuff I liked of his most, it would be like almost just an abstract shape with a face and two really, really well rendered hands. And like if you nail those two things, like you can sell so much. So like I think a big thing is just like knowing your strengths and playing to them. If you give me like, I know I'm like eating up time. I was working on a drawing once, like in a coffee shop next to my buddy Eamon, and I was like, I just can't get the angle of this thing right. Like it doesn't look like she's holding it. And he was like, do you have to draw it? It's like the simplest advice. I was like, holy shit, no, I don't. Like she doesn't have to have that, or like I can, you know, because I need to get this done or whatever. If it's not working, like just change it, man. Yeah. Like I think, I still think about that all the time. I should tell him that. But yeah, unfortunately, I feel like it's just time is the biggest thing. Like you can kind of tell when someone has done this enough that they feel comfortable.
Right. Tell me if you disagree, though. Especially if you're self-taught, you can work for 10 years and just repeat the same mistakes over and over and over again. So I think there's an intentionality to practice that I think a lot of people don't do. They're like, oh, I want to get to the next level. Well, here's the thing that I hear all the time, man. Oh, that's my style. Like, no, that's a flaw. I'm going to be real with you. That you should work on fixing that.
Right.
Flaws aren't style in a lot of ways. So it is a fine line, man.
Yeah, I've been out of art school for a long time now, again, because I'm a million years old. So like, I forget, like I forget about that stage. That is a big one.
Yeah.
I remember feeling that occasionally where I'd be like, oh, I just like don't really worry about rendering that part correctly. I still have some shit that I'm just not good at. But I don't lean into it, you know? And I'm sort of, the thing is you got to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And I think open to critique if you are willing to hear it. You should be willing to hear it, especially if you're just starting out. But yeah, you gotta push yourself. That's the other thing. I think for me, that means making time to do kind of like personal stuff where I really am a little bit more like, this isn't solving a problem so much as like make something that's maybe new and hard for you, right? Mm-hmm. And just like, as boring as this can be, like if you can do any kind of like live figure drawing, it's so helpful.
Yeah,
which is practice, dude. Like draw every day and think about the thing that like, I'm not good at perspective. I know that, but you know, you can learn it. There's a million YouTube channels that will just literally teach you how to do it. But that is a really good point. Like you can spend hours and hours just getting like more entrenched in the same problem.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, that's part of my art journey is kind of repeating the same mistakes over and over again, but not having feedback or critique. This beyond my wife, who helped me out a lot because she went to art school and kind of guided me.
That's where, sorry, real quick. That's like why I think community is so important. If you have like other like-minded people around, like it really helps, especially if you're struggling with something, to just have a buddy to be like, can you just look at this real quick? Like where's your eye going? You know, what's jumping out at you? Even friends who aren't artists, like people, you'd be surprised, like people's eyes naturally will be like, oh, I don't like that thing. So I think that's
there are a lot of people that are like, oh, I can't draw, but then they're like picking up on really advanced art concepts. They just aren't articulating them. They just have a natural knack for it. Like my mom is kind of like that. She doesn't classify herself as an artist, yet she has a very good eye.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
You'd be surprised with things like the figure. You've been looking at people your whole life. So when you see a drawing that's wrong, like you will register it, even if you're not an artist. And I think like, you know, you look at a lot more art than you think, and you kind of start picking up on stuff. Like that's why most critics aren't artists. I think more people should trust their eye and like try to engage with art critically. Just in general, I guess.
Sorry if you can hear my dog right here. He's kind of moaning.
I could, but
it's okay, buddy. What do you think in general are your strengths and weaknesses in like art? And I'm trying to think for myself. I won't make you answer, and I'll return the favor. I'll do it for myself.
Sure.
What do you think? Come on, buddy.
I hope that I have a good eye for composition. That's like a big thing with collage, you know, like that's kind of, you're kind of giving yourself the opportunity to focus on that more because you're not stuck rendering. I try to make that a priority. I care about color, and I guess I hope I'm okay at it. I can draw, but I don't feel like it's like, I definitely sometimes am like, there's stuff I just don't know how to do right. Like I was saying, like I'm not, perspective is hard for me.
Just because something's a weakness too doesn't mean you can't do it. It just maybe takes more time for you to do it. I want to clarify that as well, because you're a professional. Like you're not going to submit subpar work intentionally. You know what I mean? So like there's a difference there too. Like just because you're saying it's a weakness doesn't mean you can't do it. It's just
everyone.
You're an RPG character, right? What are the high stats? What are the lower stats? You know?
I guess like I can cut paper. I got the what's that, dexterity, I guess. I
With
don't
craftsmanship, you know.
I do think like I don't have I would love a hand that's like kind of more, I'm not totally confident in my ability to draw. I do it a lot, but it's like hard sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
That's actually something this year I've been trying to think about more. That's like, you know, collage works a different muscle. Again, this will be something where in like 45 minutes, I'll be like, oh shit, I thought of like everything I'm bad at. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I mostly have like my system and I try to have it, the process is like kind of built of things that I feel okay doing. Right. So I've not like I've eliminated all of my weaknesses. I mean, they're everywhere. Right. But I try not to like, especially if it's like client work, like I'm trying to make it so that I'm not letting them in. So they're kind of like stuff that's a little outside of my normal stuff. So I'm a bad painter. I really like painting a lot, but I'm not good at it. And I've been wanting to introduce like a little bit more, like there is a physical part like of my process where I literally cut paper, but I've been thinking about trying to get like just a little bit more sort of tactile stuff. Yeah, why don't you tell me about what you're bad at while I think about all the mistakes I've made in my life?
Oh my God. The purpose of this is for you to end on a good note, by the way. So we'll try our best there.
No, it's fine. This is like important for me to think about. I more think these days about like, how do I complete the problem? Right.
Right. And that's part of the conversation with these things too, is like kind of looking at your work on a broader perspective, because so much of it, you're probably just thinking about the piece you're working on right now and like the little technical things. I feel like I've improved at my weaknesses a lot recently, you know, just to have some confidence in myself. But, you know, there's like schools of thought that like some people are more naturally colorist versus valuist.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I was maybe intuitively more of a colorist. So trying to work on values and like really have that range has been something I've been working towards a lot. So I think I've improved at it a lot, but it's still something that, dude, you got to stop. My God. I'm going to finish this and then I'm going to get him out of the room. But yeah, I think knowing where to put flat blacks and inking, or like a lot of areas of dark, and not being afraid to do that is something that I'm working on a lot right now. So you could see as maybe being a weakness that I just have to really, I can't just be like, oh, I'm going to do all black here. I have to do a study and be like, yeah, if I do this here, then I counteract it here. So I've been working a lot on pen and ink, and I find that, you know, I'm trying to learn from people like Bernie Wrightson, who are masters at that, of just knowing how to make that graphic like pop, and a lot of confidence in those strokes. So that's something, perspective for sure. I hate doing it. There's the day where I'm in my piece of the process and the drawing phase, and I'm like, all right, I'm pulling up that same perspective video I've watched 50 times and I'm relearning it again, you know? So that's definitely something. I think my strengths, I have a pretty good imagination. Like I for a long time, never used reference at all, which was a mistake, but my imagination is pretty strong, I think.
Were you one of those people who was like, no, one of my strengths is I don't need reference?
Because I didn't even think of the concept of using.
I get it, man.
Like, I'm not even. I knew that people used reference, but when I first used it, I felt like I was like discovering something other people didn't do, and I'm like, no, fuck, dude, everyone does this. It's just like you don't even process it when you're kind of learning on your own little island. So, but I've gotten really good at like drawing from reference now, like proportion. I feel, you know, that question earlier with like what separates good art from great. I feel like the most common drawing mistake is proportion. People get proportions off. So
nothing fucks up a face faster, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think another thing that beginner artists spend too much time on, because I'm just being critical myself, is, dude, I could spend a month doing this tightly rendered complex drawing, but I would get better quicker if in between that big drawing that does all the rendering, I produce 7, 6, 8, whatever, just smaller drawings that just purely focus on drawing from like that first 15 minutes of sketching, gesture, line of action, all that stuff carries so much more weight than all those tiny little lines at the end of the day. So
100%. I think over rendering that is a real giveaway of like if you're rendering before you're ready to, that is a very classic kind of early mistake.
Right.
Because it's sort of the fun part, right?
Yeah.
Which I think we were talking about that a little bit with like a composition that's just kind of all fully rendered, as opposed to.
Well, my style is highly rendered though, so
sure.
I'm trying to focus more on like big picture. So, yeah. But I still do love stuff like Ian Miller that's highly rendered. It's just, even if you took all that rendered out, it's extremely imaginative. The forms are really interesting, and it's excellent composition. So it has the fundamentals first.
Right. It's not that rendered work is bad. It's that like it's easy to start rendering too early because you're like excited, right?
Exactly. So I don't know. I'd be curious. You take a look at my work and you see if you agree or disagree.
Sure. Oh, you mean right now?
No. Just like message me later or something.
I was gonna say that seems a little intense.
No. Although, dude, if you come back on a panel and, we have like Caroline Harrison and some other people on, we do a little bit of critique of each other's work. It's mostly positive, but it's pretty valuable.
Sure. That sounds great.
What's one part of your art you're trying to improve at this year?
That's fine. I am trying to draw more. Like, first of all, it's not like I don't draw, but working on this comic was like, just a reminder, and like talking to my friends who just like blast out drawings, like I'm still kind of like, I enjoy drawing as my like escape. That's kind of like my, for funsies, so when I have to do it, it has to look as kind of like finished as I want it to. I struggle a little, but yeah, and I've been doing like penning stuff for fun, but I'd really like to get some of that into my work in a more complete way. I got some comic work coming up, so I'm going to be forced to do a lot of drawing, which I really enjoy, but I want to get a little faster at it. And I just have plans about like working bigger and trying to get like a little bit more, so a few more mediums in there. But yeah, I'm working on like a new. I don't know how to talk about it. I got some new series or whatever I'm working on that like kind of approaches new to me, like subject matter. And I'm being very like cagey about this. I don't know why. I think because I'm not like totally confident in it yet. But there's a few. We were talking about like what are mistakes you can make kind of with your art. I think it's easy to just kind of repeat similar themes, and I'm really looking to push out of some of that stuff, which can be hard when someone expects something from you. But I want to do a little bit more like I'm working on a zine, like very sort of like privately, of just kind of like a little bit more wild collage. And then I want to do these very kind of focused pieces that are about something specific and personal to me. Again, I'm sorry, that's a vague answer. But so there's a little bit of like very specific like approach, like process stuff I want to improve at. And then I'm trying to like introduce some new, more conceptual, like new ideas into my work that I've been thinking about for a long time, but haven't found the time for.
When did you first start doing collage then? Like kind of finding your way in that medium,
Right. So I was doing a little bit early, like in college, but not. I was afraid to use it as like the actual final result. Mm-hmm. I would kind of find ways to like draw also, and then so it's been there, but I think it took a little while for me to figure out how to do it like in a way that felt honest. And then also some of that is just me being like a dumbass about like I said earlier, like allowing myself to be just sort of like to make the art I wanted to make. But I did a lot of like building collage. Like I would like build new structures out of photographs I took around the city. And I really liked like Jake Bannon's art when I was younger. So like that's, heavy collage stuff. So I try to like introduce that into my work. By the time I graduated, I was pretty, it was drawing, but then like half and half, I'd say. And shortly after that, I kind of gave myself permission. Yeah, you know what? My like senior thesis was like probably more like 70-30. I was like more in like full big collaged landscapes with like a drawn figure in them. Yeah, it took me a little while, and to get to where I'm at right now is like even longer. You know, I was doing digital collage, like purely illustration stuff, and it wasn't until like, man, maybe 10 years, a little more than that ago, that I started thinking like, how can I do this in a little bit more of a, like, I want to get back to like the physical feeling of like touching paper. Like I want there to be some kind of a tangible part of this.
Yeah.
And I was like going about it really weird still. I wanted to like basically make a piece, cut out all the individual elements, and then like kind of reassemble it on a panel. That was my plan.
Yeah.
And it was going okay. Like I thought it was like, again, I was kind of like into how stupid that process was, like kind of backwards. But then I remember looking at like the page I was cutting the pieces out of and being like, this like silhouette shape is actually like more interesting to me than the thing I'm making. And that's how I kind of got to the like I think of my work as like subtractive almost instead of additive. Like a lot of collage, you're piling things on.
Right.
Like you're cutting a section out and then like layering it. So I'm like carving like a little tunnel. And that like from there, I was like bumbling through that for a little while until I found like the most sort of direct version of it. And it's kind of a balance for me about like what's really rewarding to look at. So like I'll do some where there's like a lot of floral stuff and it can be really fun to like cut all the little pieces out so your eye gets to like kind of like, you know, that feeling of like walking in the woods where there's like parallax or whatever. There's trees that are overlapping and like it just feels so dense and like huge. I like that feeling a lot, and I want that in my art where I can get it. But balancing that against like have something that has an impact. So I think a lot about like some of my favorite art is like Polish poster design, which is just so like direct. So for me, the ultimate goal is like kind of marrying those two things.
I can totally see that. It makes a lot of sense in terms of like looking at your work. You want there to be that like strong focal point, but there's a lot of supportive details.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you. Yeah, I think again, like since this is answering your last question, but I want to figure out a way to kind of have. I want to push that farther because it's easy, not easy. It has become somewhat easy for me to make something that just has the impact where it's like, okay, here's the focal point, and honestly, the rest doesn't have to do a whole lot. I'm trying to like push myself to kind of include more stuff that makes it really fun for me. So I did. Do you know Blood of Gods? That like zine. I know Caroline did it too.
Oh yeah, I have my copy in the other room. I'm subscribed.
Oh, cool. All right.
So I've seen your piece in there, the one with all the grapes and stuff, right? It's near the front.
That was like that process of like I did a ton of research about like what plants grow like in a vineyard and like what pests can fuck up a vineyard. So that's the only things I included are like things that make sense to that guy. But just there's so many little details for me, you know? Like I get to really get lost in like what's going on in there besides just like building a weird corkscrew arm. Does that make sense?
Oh no, it does. I have one more question before we start showing some art. What like came first for you? Book covers, comics, working with bands, or did it kind of all happen at the same time?
Okay, so I got like super lucky and did, man, fuck, now you mention it, dude. Like a lot of that I've been doing for a long time. I started, I think the first real gig I ever got, I did a t-shirt design for Psyopus, remember them?
Yes, I do. They were like really spazzy sounding. I don't mean that in a mean way. Like that was kind of what they're going for.
Totally. Super like ridiculous over the top guitar. Sort of like that 2007 metalcore shit.
Oh yeah. I was in high school then, so I remember that shit.
I did a shirt for them and like a couple other bands that just like came through town, and like that was a time when I could literally just like on MySpace, to be honest with you, send a message to a band and be like, hey, you looking for art? And since at that time they would manage those accounts, like it wasn't that hard to hear back. I think they were like staying with a friend of mine and just said like, hey, we need shirts. And I was like, well, fuck, man, like I'm in school. You want something? But I also at that time, I was trying to do covers for comics because I think as we talked about, like James Jean and those guys were like a big inspiration. And like Dave McKean is like a hero of mine, speaking of like collage and art and, all that stuff. So I was trying to do covers, but then this guy on the internet was basically like, hey, do you want to just like try doing a pitch real quick? And we got super lucky and they like accepted the pitch. So like I signed a contract saying I would do this comic and got thrown in. Like I was not ready really. Some of that work some of it I'm proud of. Some of it I think looks pretty dated at this point. I mean, it's old. But so like I was doing comics and band art. Like that was like the first shit I ever did, I contacted Willowtip like while I was in school because they were putting out like everything I liked at that time. Like Necrophagist and Arsis were like really big for me at that time. Maruda, I was like an early client of mine. I love those dudes. Maruda also, like those guys are an early Willowtip. Oh, I think I got one of their records here. They're like a sort of death grind. This is their Relapse album. This one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Kind of like a landfill type of thing?
Yeah, a bunch of skulls, like, dystopia, end of the world shit.
Nice.
I really like that band a lot. I feel like they deserve more attention. But also they just were cool and worked with me. And but they like, Willowtip really gave me a chance like early. He was like, yeah, man, like, let's see what shirts you can make, why not? And I work with them still. I like do a lot of the design for that label, and I like if bands need art, I'll sometimes do a cover here and there. I mean that Afterbirth album, that's a Willowtip release.
Oh yeah.
So that's like, I don't know if it's weird to give this advice because it's like I know I got lucky, but I found this label that was putting out like music I really loved, and they weren't huge yet, and I just like basically just emailed them and was like, do you need anything?
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to have a little bit of salesmanship. It's just you have to know when you're spamming somebody and when it's coming from a genuine place.
At that time, it was a little bit easier to get in touch with people without it feeling shitty,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, who doesn't? It never hurts to just like reach out to a band you like and say like, I love what you do. Here's what I make if you need shirts. That's not rude, I don't think. If you like follow up with them about it all the time, it's a little shitty, but like that's how else are they going to know about you,
Right.
But so I got some of those jobs. I was like doing some design, and then right out of school, like, man, there's like a portfolio day that we did, and I got like a series of Scholastic, like kind of young adult spooky book covers.
Cool.
Yeah, I still can't believe I got that job. It was by far like the biggest thing I'd ever done. And they really just wanted me kind of to recreate a style that they already had in mind. It was very photo based. I think they look okay, but it just, the only thing that's kind of like relevant about it to my life now is it gave me a sense of like, oh, you can work with book covers, like that's something you can do. I think
you branch out,
Mm-hmm. It's really gratifying work because it's like working with a band, like there's this huge piece of art that you are contributing something to. And usually the writer is pretty like open to stuff, and like usually I get to work with like pretty good art directors. And it pays. I love working with metal bands, but it doesn't pay very well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess, man, I've been doing those three things for a very long time. I haven't done that many book covers. That took like a while to get back into that. And I think that's like something I would love to do more of them. I'm starting to do a little more of that stuff lately. But for years, man, I paid the rent by just like doing as many t-shirts and like album covers as I possibly could. Comics pay absolute dog shit.
And that's tough work, man.
Yes. Well, also like the comics I made, successful comics make money. And okay. So one time I talked to like a group of kids that were all trying to get into comics, and I think I was too negative. There is room in there. It's possible to do it. It's just hard. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I don't, So my goal, honestly, like people would ask me, people like my parents would be like, what are you trying to do? And like, do you have a plan? And it's almost always been like just a better version of this. So I've been really lucky because now I'm doing covers for, DC. I did like some Sandman stuff, and like obviously Dave McKean was my hero. So it's like, it just feels
that
like,
shit's huge, man. It's awesome.
I again, like, I can't believe it. It feels like I'm talking about someone else. Dude, my friend recently pointed out that like I did a variant cover for a book that also had variants by Yoshitaka Amano. You know him?
Oh, he's one of my heroes.
Okay, so like I didn't meet the dude. I'm sure he hasn't seen my work, but just he was like, your name is like right next to his, you know?
Yeah, that's crazy.
It truly is insane to me. And like, immediately my brain is like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't actually mean much except that you've been published in the same place. But like, I just am so excited that I get to do this. I know like 8-year-old Alex would be so stoked if I could like go back in time and be like, you'll be drawing comic covers. And just getting to do shit like that end cover that's like, it's the thing I've been doing, but it's the biggest version so far. And like incredibly gratifying. Really cool to be working with people that like believe in my art. From the beginning they were like, we want this to be a crazy die cut. Like, let's figure out how we can do that. And some of the book covers I've done, just like the writer being like, I like what you do. Like, let's just make something really cool. Like, we'll figure it out. Those are like the days where I really feel like I'm lucky, man. Like, my job rules. There'll be other days where I'm like, when will I go to the dentist again? Like, that stuff sucks. But yeah, if we're trying to get to like a positive place, if these questions are trying to, it feels really good, dude. Like, there are days where I'm just so like happy to be doing what I'm doing and like grateful that I get to do it. It's just, I hope I can just keep doing this until I die,
Totally.
Probably until the moment I die. That's my guess.
Let's pull up some of your art, man. That's really good to hear. All right. So I got the 2 latest covers here side by side, and we've talked a lot about them to this point, but just for the viewers, please look up. There's like a video that you reshared it, but I think Closed Casket did that actually shows the layers on the vinyl cover. It's amazing for that end piece, but I think especially the color scheme is so powerful in this one, and the sense of lighting is great. Like, you're having the darkness on part of the rib section that's kind of overlapping because that's how light hits things. Like, you're really smart about those decisions. But
thanks,
please, you mentioned it was really easy working with the band, but do you feel like this is one of your stronger pieces? You really like it?
Yes. I think like it's a little hard for me to separate. Like, I'm just so stoked with how it turned out that I kind of was like focused on that for a while. I do think, like, looking at it now, it has the impact of those Polish posters that I like. And so like, if I feel that, then I'm usually like, okay, that's a good one. Like, this would go in the highlight reel for me personally.
Yeah.
I also like, aside from just like some of it, man, that's some of the things that's cool about collages. It's like luck. I found some cool shit and I managed to put it together in a way that I remember when it started clicking, like when this piece, because I did a bunch of sketches that were like cool, but not quite working. Right.
And when you're saying sketches, what does that sketch look like for you?
Yeah. Well,
that's drawn?
No, I'm an idiot. Like, I make basically like 5 collages. They're not totally wrong yet, but like this, I had this top layer and I was like trying to find the holes that we were going to cut out. Initially, it was more, it was just like under his ribs. It didn't have that like the like holes. And I think actually Will from End was like, I really like this stuff in your work. Can we get that in there? And that like kind of collaboration is like the thing that I think is awesome. Like, not just like, can you add X that maybe doesn't fit, but just sort of like, hey, this is something I like about your work. Is there any way we can get that in there?
Yeah.
Pushed me to find kind of better solutions. But yeah, like the lighting was kind of like some of the last stuff I did where I realized I wanted it. To me, it feels like it's glowing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all just like, trompe l'oeil decisions I'm making, right? Is that I'm sorry if that's me being like a pretentious piece of shit using that expression. You know what that means, right?
No, I don't.
Okay,
I'm following the context of what it means.
That's like, I don't want to be one of those dudes. It's like, all right, whatever. It's like a fool of the eye or whatever. Like it translates to something like that.
Okay, got it.
Like, for instance, a painting teacher at my school painted a like perfect dime on the floor, basically to like explain this to people. And like, I came into that class and was like, oh, a dime, and like tried to pick it up, So like dudes who are really good at that can like truly fuck you up. There's a couple paintings at the PMA that are like, it looks like a big pile of fruit is sitting on the canvas as opposed to like a painting of it. Yeah. So I love that shit. Just because
I see a lot of stuff with like chalk artists, like on the ground,
Totally. It's like a real base human reaction. It's like a magic trick, right?
Right.
And I know since you will also be able to open this up, I really wanted it to feel like what's in there,
Yeah.
And then the thing that I guess I would encourage people to please watch that video. Like every panel has like complete art, right? So like the top is this sculpture, and then there's like a whole meat world under him, and then another like a gray different kind of meat, and then there's this like hellscape under that. You can barely make out the figures in there. There's like a whole panel of them, and then the last is like a little guy. You'll see. But just getting to like really explore the space. Like I feel like that's like an actual, like I made a full haunted house out of this guy.
So cool.
Yeah. And I do think I owe the band, like they did encourage me in the right directions and like pushed me to keep kind of refining. If we can switch to the Afterbirth one.
Yeah. That's
like more just like Alex's stream of consciousness brain kind of doing whatever. There was his one note is like, if we could get a baby in there, that'd be sick. Which like, it's, it's funny. You're sort of afraid to go too literal. The band called Afterbirth, but he was just basically like, here's our other album covers. We tend to have like this little explorer guy on it. But besides that, like,
I like that you kept that motif with that like astronaut looking kind of figure.
That was for sure something we wanted to do from the start. There are a few other sketches that actually I really like. And I hope I can do something with them sometime, but just like a way more wild figure. Like he had like shit flying off of him and like it's like floating in space. And I think they were like, this is just like a little too far. Like he looks a little bit too much like a monster. And so we wound up with this one where it's like a sort of stoic central figure with like chaos all around it. And then of course, if you look closer, there's like a lot of shit going on inside there.
There's like all these like muted textures in the background, which is really cool too. Like the fact that they're not so upfront. It really has that depth. So
that's the push and pull.
Yeah.
That's actually a thing I both of these I think initially had just like a flat color background, which I do really like. Also like talking about the Polish approach, like I sometimes I want there to be like a very graphic, like not distracting at all background, so you can really focus on all the like wild shit going on in the figure or whatever the main focus is. But for these, like this is kind of that thing I was talking about with you. Like I wanted there to be like a reward to really spending more time with it. Yeah, that took a while though. For the Afterbirth one, I was like pushing around those like building chunks for a while before I landed somewhere that I felt comfortable with.
So you talked a little bit earlier about source images being so important and stuff. Like what's your general thought process of capturing these? Do you have like a catalog that you come back to for like organization? You don't have to give away all your secrets, but just like,
I mean, I don't know.
What are some of the methods, I guess, for this?
It's not really a secret. I just like, I spend a ton of time like scouring public domain image libraries and like saving shit I think is cool. Yeah. So I do have these like, my computer is like constantly like, there's no more room on the scratch disk. I'm an idiot, but like, it's useful, man. Like I feel like I'm a hoarder, but only in my computer.
Well, better than real life.
Yeah, I agree. But so there's that, and then there's also just like I have my series of public domain websites that I go to. Flickr, I think there's like the British Library uploaded like tons, like thousands of images that you can just, they're free. You can have them. And then like, Wikimedia Commons. There's, I don't know, I mean, you can find them. If you honestly just search like public domain image, you'll find places. And it's like, to me, that's one, honest, because I don't want to steal other people's work. And two, it's like it's the restrictions thing. Like, I think it helps to have a little bit of a parameter, because you can do anything, And so to be able to be like, here are my options. Like I used to, I did this like a long time ago. I would try to make a building collage every day. And I'd be like, okay, you're allowed to use this one photo. You can only take from that photo to like edit it.
Okay.
And it's like, you realize there's just so much, you can do a lot. There's almost always another way to do it. And that's like kind of the thing about collages. Like there's just these like, there's so many possibilities. I think everyone should come to a different conclusion, even if you give them the same stuff. It makes sense to go with like the stuff, like force yourself to use the public domain shit, man. Like my number one pet peeve that I see, if we're talking shit,
right,
with sort of like modern digital collage people, is like sometimes they're just stealing art, like from living people, which sucks, or from like, dead artists, but they're like, you got to credit them. You can't, to me, that's not yours. Even if you changed it a lot, like if I see something, I'm like, I know where that's from. It bums me out. This is at least like, I know a man drew, whatever. A person drew that machinery. And like, there's still part of me that's like, I'm really kind of like skating on the back of that artist.
Yeah, it's kind of a fine line, because once something's old enough, it becomes public domain. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it's just, you just have to have that gut instinct of knowing that you changed the final image enough that it's not cheating or whatever. It comes from an authentic place,
I think you should transform, the stuff you're using should be transformed enough that it is your vision, not the original one.
Right.
It bums me out a little to see something that's so reliant on the power of the initial image. Mm-hmm. That feels, and I'm guilty of that too sometimes, man. Like I'll look back at my stuff and be like, oh, that one, maybe I'm not actually like contributing enough. But the goal is to bring enough of yourself to it that it's like truly something new. It's Frankenstein. That's like how I try to think about my work.
Right.
You edit this, right?
Somewhat. Okay. Why? I mean, if there's any sections you want me to edit, I can. But
No. I just feel like I'm going on and on. I feel like
Oh no! I mean, a lot of episodes are around this length, so you're good, man.
All right.
So you have these two Smashing Pumpkins posters, man. Which one was first?
They were. I submitted them both.
Okay.
To give you an idea of like how dumb I am with my sketches. These were about this. I polished them, but I basically sent them both of these for the one date, and the guy was like, "These are great. Like, can we try and do two different
shows with them? Because it's like
I like both shows. Yeah, I really. I'm not trying to whatever. I grew up in the time I grew up. I loved the Smashing Pumpkins as a kid. I know Billy Corgan is like not totally my dude right now. Like I think we have different opinions about a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. I doubt he even fucking saw these, but it's still cool to me to just like in that, like if I could tell 13-year-old Alex kind of realm. But these were just like purely me collaging what I wanted to make. That's kind of the dream job, right? Like the one on the left in particular is just kind of like a continuation of some work I'd been doing in a zine that, it's like, well, what if I just slap their logo on it, basically? So yeah, it's, there's like almost not much for me to say. It's like, I just got to do what I wanted, and I'm lucky that they said yes.
They both have a very different look to them. Is the one on the right, did you do more digital painting to it? And the one on the left is more like construction and like puzzle putting together? Or like, what's your mind like?
Great question.
Honestly, for this piece.
Yeah. They actually both, the approach is pretty similar. The one on the right is just like a ton of old, there's like graphs and then also like color wheel stuff. So it's just all these like, what's that word when you shine a light, like prismatic stuff. And then also just like, here's a color swatch. So I like piled those all together. And the face, I think, is just from like there's like a collection of drawings of old like Greek statues. I just like pulled a chunk off of it to give it any kind of like specificity. But yeah, it's funny how it has like a painterly feeling because the colors have like there's so much color variation in there. And that one, the balance for me is just like, how do I make this have a color scheme when I'm using like rainbows?
So many, yeah.
But yeah, the approach is quite similar, honestly. There's like a one chunk of face that makes it person, and then everything else is just me building. It's like that push and pull we were talking about.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I'm trying to pair them up to kind of like have similar themes or color schemes between them, but like these two in particular really drew my attention. Are these personal pieces or were these used by clients?
The one on the left is for a comic called Ice Cream Man, which is a horror anthology that Image puts out. That comic I said I did is called Swan Songs.
Okay.
That's the same writer from Ice Cream Man. He was one of the first people to reach out about me doing variant covers for him. And just like the fucking best guy, man. A really cool person to work with, and very, how do I say this? Just like generous to artists. He's awesome. Like, I pay every artist I work with the same amount. It doesn't matter to me like how famous you are or whatever. So like he had some like real heavy hitters on there and then offered me like a similar price, which is just like, most people don't do that, you know? So whatever. My point being, great guy to work with. I respect him as like a person, but he also was kind of like, just do your thing. This was a piece that I had been kind of like working on for a while, but I couldn't quite find the right solution. And I sent him one that was a lot more reasonable before I did this like sideways mouth. I remember it's sort of the test where like I sometimes make something where I'm like, oh, that's fucking gross. Like I feel bad looking at it. And this was one of those. And so I was like, either this is going to be the one or like this guy's never talking to me again, you know?
Right.
But
you sent an email a little nervously.
Yes. I was like, I'm sorry about this one. We could go in a different direction. But yeah, I personally think these two are two of my favorite things I've ever made.
Awesome.
The one on the left, I just feel like it's like one of those feelings I was talking about, like a kismet or whatever, where I'm like, shit just lined up right. Like somehow I got there and I feel strongly about it.
Yeah, dude, I love it too.
Thanks. Thank you. The one on the right is like kind of a gentle homage to like Andrew Wyeth paintings. It's not even that gentle, dude. I'm sure you can see it. It's like sort of his color schemes. There's a few pieces he's done that are like you know Christina's World, probably the like lady lying in the field like reaching towards a big house. Okay, so I think there's a little bit of that in there, like the house way off in the distance.
Right.
But he did this painting of like, it's like the end of winter, and it's like a snow drift or whatever, like a snow plop in a field that's melting. But he's like, it's also a man. It's like an old man is melting into the field, and it feels like it's like about death and like the end of something, and it just is like fucking annihilates me. Like it's such a good painting. Obviously, he's like an incredibly skilled painter, but just like I hadn't thought of it. Just to me felt like a really smart solution to that kind of like heavy subject matter, but he's done it in like a really kind of like peaceful, powerful way that didn't feel heavy-handed or like corny. And this is like me doing the heavy-handed, corny version of it. But just yeah, I feel like that image is like kind of mysterious and has like a, you know, it's weird for me to speak complimentarily about my own work, but there's a lot of room in that one, I think, for like people to interpret it their own way or whatever, which is like my favorite feeling.
I bet this one also, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong in how it's finalized, but it probably really benefits from that layering quality you were talking about with the hand cut, and it probably looks even better in person.
I hope so. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. It really feels like you're like discovering like a secret, which is, you know, something I want in my work.
Nice. So then some, back to some band projects you've done. I actually wasn't sure. Is the Witching thing up in the top left corner? Is that a band? I wasn't familiar with them, or is that a
Yeah.
book? Or okay.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to them. Sorry.
No, I mean, you should check them out. They're great. They're a Philly band. They just, you know, the Decibel year end.
Yeah.
They're on that list this year.
Oh,
their
sick.
album came out this year. I think they're, you know, no shit, but I think they're great. I like that album a lot, but they just keep getting better. They were really, that was like a, do you know like Shannon Boyd?
No.
She's like a Philly, but she does promo, but she's like a really good person and like really invested in the like community.
Okay.
So she does promo for bands, but she's also like really invested in like pairing people she thinks will be good together.
Mm-hmm.
And like looking out, like if there's a band that like she thinks is sick, she'll like really sort of put effort into making sure that they like become the best version of that band.
Right. Neat.
This is her job, but whatever. I mean, she was kind enough to like basically bring Witching to a show that I had in town and be like, hey, look at this. Like, do you think maybe you guys could work together?
Yeah. Little matchmaker here.
Yeah. And like, we're, you know, I think similarly minded. This is another one where I kind of like, I did this for them and then I wound up like making a giant cut paper version of it for another show. That the guy, Zach from Imperial Triumphant came to actually.
Oh,
I think
awesome.
also because of Shannon. But this again, like the community part, like Witching is a band in Philly. Shannon is a person that's local. You know, it's like we all, by knowing each other, we all kind of get something from it. You know, they've moved on. No, I'll phrase that a little differently. They've worked with other people since me.
Yeah.
And like, I'm stoked about all of it. Like it feels good to be in a like supportive community.
Totally.
But yeah, that was a fun one for me because I got to just kind of like stretch out and do some shit that I like.
Yeah.
The one under is Arma, which I think they just, I just kind of like made an image I was already working on printable for them. I just did a shirt design for them that I think they haven't printed yet. That's like a little bit more like my recent work. But I love that band.
Oh, fantastic band. Yeah.
Really good dudes also.
Where are they from? They're up north, right?
Oh, fuck, I should know that. No, they're man. I don't remember where they're located, but they're
They do a lot of East Coast touring. I mean, they come down to Atlanta. I haven't caught them yet. I know they're awesome live. I love their records. Just it hasn't lined up, but I've heard really good things about them as people too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Caroline for sure is buds with those guys. But no, I think I hadn't seen them since Sky Burial era stuff until this most recent tour where they were on, you know, with all those other guys I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
That fucking killed it, like blew me away.
Yeah,
it's so fun live. Like it's whatever. But that's another one where they're kind of just like, hey, we need shirts. Like you got something. That's always like the most fun, easy stuff to do. Whereas this Imperial Triumphant design was like, it should be a nightmare, but it's like so fun. Like Zach was like, look, man, would you do some Dark Souls shit for us? And it's like, fuck yes, I will. You know, like I'm a giant dork. Like, so that's just, I got to like draw, what's his name? With, instead of like a bunch of meat and skulls, it's like destroyed New York buildings. And like, I think there's like still some organs and stuff in there. So yeah, I mean, that's like a purely fun job. And that's true, like fully Zach's idea. I think like when I work with them, that tends to be more their thing because they have such a specific aesthetic.
Yeah,
but that's really cool. Like when that's all done for me, I just kind of like, I get to play in the space they made. I
don't know if you know Noah Myhoff. He's a Georgia artist as well, but he's done some work with it.
Oh yeah.
Imperial Triumphant, and he said something similar where he's like, they have such a strong aesthetic, you just kind of find your way of fitting into it. But like they said that they were really like the reins were loose enough, you know.
Yeah,
so, very cool.
Awesome. Like Noah's work is great. Like
yeah,
I've never met them, but I've been following them for like a little while, and it's like really cool to see them like kind of blowing up a little bit.
Yeah. Great person.
Yeah, I get that sense.
Yeah. And then the Pyron, right? That's the pronunciation.
Pyron. Yeah.
Pyron. God, I've messed that up like 8 times.
I used to call them Pyron also until I met Doug. I went to high school with Doug, actually. Like, I think we barely overlapped by like 1 year.
I met him at a show in New York with Caroline. He's super funny dude. I liked him a lot.
Doug's the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, why you don't have to know that name. You know, that's like kind of their thing too. Is like an intentionally very esoteric band.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just like what's this? Like, they treat me with a lot of respect. Like they always do a Caroline shirt, which like is a good idea. Every band should do a Caroline shirt. And then sometimes they'll be like, oh, we kind of want like a weird, like something that's like a little outside of what she does. Mm-hmm. And I'll get to do something like a little like this sliced up dude. Yeah, I don't know. I think of them as buds. Like, I kind of forgot we did this, honestly. Like, I'm in touch with those guys a lot. I did Steve, his like solo album. Where is it? I think Doug collaborated on it too. This Sepitus album. I don't know if you saw this. It's another Willow Tip release. So like, I've been working with those dudes like as much as I can. I'll do like little design stuff for other projects. So, you know, Scarcity. You hear that one?
No.
It's a project like Doug and some other guys are in. That's like microtonal black metal. I think it fucking rules. All I did was
that sounds up my alley. Yeah.
Yeah, you should check it out. But I just like did some layout stuff for it. And for a while, man, I hope this keeps happening. But I got to do like, because I work at Willowtip partly, but like the layout for Caroline's Pyron album covers. Mm-hmm. Like, she'll send me the art, and I get to like do all the like kind of type and like additional like little illustrations and stuff. It usually winds up just being like taking chunks of her art, but I find that like super gratifying. They really make me feel like I'm kind of like part of the process, you know?
Yeah, very cool, man.
You chose like 4 bands that I truly love working with. It's so good going.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. This I pulled up. So it's the King Dude album cover, but I wanted to show that depth because I think that's the physical product there on the right. So just it's a little glimpse of that. Yeah,
that was a big one for me. Also, he kind of helped me, like, took the stuff I was doing and was like, "Hey, you can put this on an album cover." You know, mm-hmm. That was an early one that I think a lot of people found me because of this. So I owe him.
Very cool. And then I have these two. So I have a little more non-metal kind of comic leaning stuff for the next couple of slides. But yeah, I don't know the context behind these images, frankly. But I just thought they really popped out to me. Do you mind telling me a little about them?
Sure. The one on the left was for a group show, a gallery in Australia.
Which gallery was that?
Outré, I believe it's pronounced. It's like Outre with a little guy on it.
I know there's a couple really cool galleries in Australia. BN Art Gallery in Melbourne.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, they have a really sick, like, sort of illustrative art scene there. Mm-hmm. I think I remember finding out that there was like the people there really responded to what I was doing. I would love to visit, but it's a long trip.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was just sort of like me. I'm going through like a wanted to burn the world phase. I guess I'm still there. It's a very frustrating time to be alive. And so I was making these kind of like self-immolation kind of pieces, but my goal was to keep them kind of like feeling like peaceful. Mm-hmm. So it's this like kind of violent looking image, but the person looks like pretty placid. It's just my work. It's kind of just my gallery work gets to be more about me. I did a few of these. I wound up doing a couple for like some bands here and there. But yeah, there's not much story beyond just like me feeling like shit was pretty rough in my life and in the world. And that helped me explore it a little bit. The other one is for a like one-player tabletop role-playing game.
One player.
So it's like you're just kind of like, it's like a workbook almost.
Okay.
The concept being, it's like a paint by numbers kind of, but you follow the instructions and it's like you're painting this like cursed image that winds up like haunting you, but you can kind of I thought it was like a really cool concept.
Sounds like a Junji Ito kind of thing.
Yep. Another favorite of mine. The creator is the Banana Chan. She's like really, or they, I think, like kind of blowing up in that very specific space. Like, I don't know a ton about like tabletop stuff, but I see this, there's like a lot of cool things happening, a lot of art that I really like. They always have like the concept for the games that come first. It seems like they have really well thought out stuff. And this is something, you can just do by yourself. I think that's such a cool idea, like as a weird little loner. But they were really just like, hey, here's this like spooky image that my friend painted a lot of years ago. Can you like kind of recreate that and then give it context for like the book we're making? So I got to like reimagine this horrific painting. And like, the character is just sort of like a bunch of different, it's cobbled together collage style, and then like I painted over it in some places, and that's
a nice marriage of those techniques, because I was thinking it kind of had that painterly quality to it.
That's been something I've been trying to like play with recently, because I really like things that are openly collage, but I also like when people can't totally tell how I make my work.
Yeah.
See, another really fun one, man. I'm really grateful to be able to work with so many cool people. I think they said we're going to maybe do something again next year. I'm hoping so.
Awesome.
Yeah, but if you are into any kind of like role-playing game stuff, I would check out Banana Chan.
Banana Chan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, cool. I have that book behind me at this exact moment. It's my little...
This cover on the far... Yeah, that's really recent, right?
Yeah, it just came out like last week.
Can I say one thing? I don't think it has anything to do with it. For some reason, that figure, that guy, looks like... oh my God, I'm an idiot right now, blurting. I don't even know the guy's name. He's the dude who is in Men in Black. I feel like that guy just looks like him to some reason for me.
Is that Tommy Lee Jones?
Yes. I feel like I keep seeing Tommy Lee Jones. I look at that face. I don't know why. I don't think you're probably thinking about it at all, but I keep thinking it's Tommy Lee Jones. It's a giant.
Well, it's not about giant Tommy Lee Jones, I promise.
Okay.
But I see what you mean. He's got like a big forehead and high cheekbones.
It's just me being an idiot. I should have just shut my mouth.
No.
I just see it. I mean it as I love this piece. It's not like a...
Thanks, man. I know. I don't think that's a critique.
Yeah. Just keep seeing them.
Yeah. That one of the notes they kept giving me was I had made this character like a little too scrawny. So they like kept being like, beef him up a little, like chunk up that dude. And I think maybe the thing they weren't telling me is like, this looks like Tommy Lee Jones, man. Like, inflate this man.
Yeah.
It's funny you chose both those, because like these faces, while I was working on that cover, I was like, this is reminding me a little bit of the work I was doing, like that other one right next to it, because it's this like detective in a big coat with a big forehead. But yeah, that's Lotus Land is if you read Little Bird, which is a really great comic if you haven't, that the writer of Little Bird just wrote this one and through Boom. Really nice interior art also. They just wanted like a sort of a Blade Runner vibe, but to still like kind of acknowledge a little bit of like a collage. So like that, the hand being like the cutout part, they let me get a little weird with them. I'm working on the final issue cover like today, like after we hang up.
Nice.
But yeah,
everything else is painted though, right? Like digitally painted, or
no? See, I fucking got you. I'm real glad you said that.
Yeah.
The figure is like collage based with a lot of like digital painting on top, like drawing. The whole city is built from like a bunch of photos that I then went into. Like I drew over a lot of parts of it to make it more like futuristic. Nice. There's like a scan paint texture for the sky, but it's all just like, it's kind of like collaged, painting as collage, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Where collage is painting, I guess is more what it is. It's like picking chunks and assembling them to look like it was made in a different way. which I find really satisfying as a person who likes a stupid process. But yeah, man, this is just kind of me going bananas, buck wild, if you will, with like as much as I possibly could. Like there's like a bunch of versions with different rain texture on it, and like, yeah, that was a fun one.
I'm excited for you if you're going to keep going more this direction. Like I think this would be an interesting way to keep seeing your style develop personally.
Thank you. This is what I'm doing. I think like the work I've been doing lately is a little bit more in this direction. It's very kind of like classic illustration and less collage, which is cool with me, but I want to try and remember to, I want both things.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
The one next to it is pretty old. That was for a re-release of my comic Awakening, which, like, man, if I can tell like a brief sort of self-indulgent story, that book got optioned by HBO, and Guillermo del Toro was going to direct it.
Oh my God.
I know. And like, I had people calling me like from our publisher being like, you're going to be famous. Like, this is it. Get ready, man. Which, like, honestly, at the time, was just like terrifying. But I was happy. I like it. Guillermo del Toro's work is fucking, especially at that time, I really loved. That sounds like I'm shit.
Well, dude, the latest Pinocchio I thought was a masterpiece.
Yep. He's,
oh my God.
Aesthetically, that dude is out of control. It's like, and Pan's Labyrinth had just come out, so I was like full on 100% stoked. But it just wound up, that was when he had like really just blown up, and I think he just said yes to too many things,
Yeah.
So we wound up not happening, but we were like commissioned to make a bunch more stuff, kind of. It's like, hurry up and finish the second volume. Like, let's do up like a few pinups, and we'll make like, new covers for it and shit. So this was sort of like later era Awakening was the name of the comic. I mean, I like that image. That's how I was approaching my work in college. So it's like drawing based with a bunch of collage on top. And really it's cool. Funny, like, man, you're good at this. Like seeing these two images next to each other, it's funny to see like a similar approach that I think is working a lot better now. But yeah, that I literally also took paint texture. Like I would make a mark with a paintbrush, scan it, and then apply that around. Ooh. So like truly the most backwards and insane way to approach making a picture.
Nice. And I got the thing on the right, just to have a book cover in here.
First of all, that book is so fucking good. I don't know if you've read it. No. It's really, really, it's like heartbreaking, but it's so good. Like she's an incredible writer. She was Philly based at the time. I don't know if she is anymore. But it's like about like an abusive relationship in the queer community. But the house is kind of like constantly being recontextualized. Like every chapter is like the dream house as like, jail or whatever. Like I'm an idiot and I don't remember the specifics, but and there's all these footnotes that give you like context. It's sort of like, no, I'm not going to make that comparison because I'm really tired of people making things, saying things are like House of Leaves. It's not like House of Leaves, except that there is a lot to find by reading all the like footnotes. Like that's like really important to the story, and it's like how you kind of get a sense of who this person is. And it winds up being like really specific and very interesting. And like if this is possible, it's like a page turner about something really hard. So that book is incredible, and I feel very, very lucky that she chose me to work with her on it. That one is like, I was doing work that looked like that. She said like, can you do something that kind of feels like a pulp novel, but in that style? And we worked on this. I think the only thing we really had to like kind of go back and forth about was she really wanted the face at the bottom to have that pulp novel feeling. And I like doing things that were a little too sort of photographic. I wound up having to like paint the face, and yeah. But beyond that, like it went real smooth. And the designer, Kim, what is her last name? It's just like me at the end of how long have we been talking? 2 hours and 18 minutes. My brain is shutting down. Yeah, Kim Glider, who's like she's like a very, very talented book designer. Did the text and also like made this really kind of, I think, integral color change to the background. I had this like sepia warm feeling that I thought looked like really kind of like hot and swampy and scary, but she gave it this like real like full pulp color scheme that I really like.
Yeah.
I just want to give credit where it's due.
Oh yeah,
working with
totally.
my team was like really sick, and I look up to both of those people very much. Yeah, that's probably the reason that I get to do book covers now, is because she chose me for that project.
Very cool. This is the last one. I just want to have some like inner panel work that you did.
Yeah.
You said this was kind of older for you.
Yeah, I'm cringing a little bit looking at it. There's parts of this that I think look cool still, but yeah, this is really old work. 2009 maybe.
Well, we could end it here, but I just thought it was cool. Like the lighting's really neat.
Thanks.
And it's also different than a lot of other comic art. So I thought
at the time, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
I really liked Kent Williams comic stuff and Ben Templesmith, if you remember him. There was like a bunch of like fine art comics is what they were calling it, but it was just like really textural, kind of painterly approaches. And I really responded to that. So I was trying to do this like collage based, but like really like thick, chunky, like the figures are all painted or drawn, whatever you want to call it. There are parts of these that I think look good. I'm not like totally embarrassed by them, but I'm a little embarrassed. Yeah, you're right. Like I like the lighting in them and stuff. It's just different from how I approach my comics now.
Yeah. Well, whenever you come back, we'll show some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe with some other people. Not to put you on the spot on the fly. I just think you'd fit really well on a panel.
Yeah, I would love to.
Just to kind of start wrapping up, we've touched on a lot of advice, but what's maybe just one last piece of advice you'd have for someone who's aspiring to be an artist? Let's keep it maybe to working with bands, just because that's usually the modus operandi here.
Practice is really important. Hold yourself to schedule. You should really be working all the time to just improve. And then don't be afraid to contact bands you like. I think it helps if the bands you like are a little bit more, a little smaller. And that's really the place to start. But bands need art, man. That's like a thing I had to get over. It was like, oh, I'm bothering them. But like everybody who needs a t-shirt design, just get in touch. And if they say no, be cool about it. I think just going to shows, getting to know people, be nice, make cool work. Like it's not easy. It's very hard. It takes a long time. Like don't expect immediate results for yourself, but just remember that you make something that people need. Illustration is a job, and you're providing a service. And the feeling of making art for a band that you like is so cool, I think. Still for me. But if you find one that you're like, oh, these guys are pretty sick, and if I could just do a shirt for them, and then you do, it's you see people wearing your art, it feels great.
Yeah.
Just remember that's not out of the question. Yeah, I think just be nice, find a community, go with those people to the things that go to shows and talk to people. This is feels like very basic advice, but that's what I'd say. And you should always be working on the refining your own work anyway. So I think the hard part is really just how do you meet people that need art?
Yeah, I think it's good advice, and if it's basic, it's just logical. I see it. Yeah. And I think the other thing too is do it, So if you're inspired by anything Alex is talking about, and I'm talking to the audience right now, it's one thing to think and just be like, oh, one day I'll do that. Execute, do it. Yeah. Take steps towards that. And I'll try to do the same. So really appreciate your time, Alex. You can stay behind just for a minute, but for everybody tuning in, it's another episode of Heavy Art Talk. Episodes every other week, if not more frequently. Please like and subscribe, and see you guys next time. Appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.